The night Alara Vance was supposed to kneel before the Alphas and accept her fate like every other woman in the Silverwood pack, she ran instead. Not away from fear, though the drums still pounded in her chest, but toward something her instinct screamed was worse than any punishment the pack could deliver. Deep in the Forbidden Woods she found him, a dying stranger, massive and broken, his blood black with poison that shouldn't exist. The smart choice was to leave. The lawful choice was to report him. But Alara had never been good at following rules, and tonight that defiance would either kill her or change everything. If you're ready to see how one woman's choice rewrites the rules of power, stay with me until the end. And if you're watching from anywhere in the world, drop your city in the comments. I love knowing where this story travels. Hit that like button and let's begin. The claiming night came the same way every year, with torches, drums, and the kind of silence that pressed against your ribs until breathing felt like rebellion. Alara stood at the edge of the gathering square, her fingers twisted in the rough fabric of her work dress. She hadn't bothered with the ceremonial white gown the other women wore. What was the point? The Alphas didn't care about fabric. They cared about submission, about the scent of fear, about which women would lower their eyes fastest when the pack leaders walked past. Around her, girls she'd known her whole life stood in perfect rows, their faces blank, their shoulders pulled back in forced confidence. Some were younger than her 23 years, some older. All of them had accepted what Alara couldn't stomach, that tonight they would be chosen, or not, and either way, their lives would belong to someone else. "You're not even trying," hissed Mara from beside her. Her cousin had painted her lips red, had braided silver thread through her dark hair. "Do you want to end up in the labor camps?" Alara didn't answer. Her eyes were fixed on the platform where the pack's Alpha Council sat in judgment. 3 men, broad-shouldered and cold-eyed, their power radiating off them like heat from a forge. At the center sat Corvin Greaves, their pack leader, a man whose smile never reached his eyes, and whose punishments were legendary. He was speaking now, his voice carrying across the square with practiced authority. "The claiming is tradition. It is order. It is the foundation upon which our pack survives the wilderness and the wars beyond our borders. Every woman will present herself. Every woman will be evaluated. Those chosen will serve with honor. Those not chosen will serve with purpose. Service." Such a clean word for what it really meant. Alara felt her stomach turn. She'd watched this ceremony 5 times before, had seen women led away by alphas who treated them like property, like breeding stock, like things that existed to strengthen bloodlines and produce the next generation of warriors. She'd told herself each year that maybe it wouldn't be so bad, that maybe she'd be chosen by someone decent, someone who'd treat her like a person instead of a prize. But last year, she'd seen what happened to Senna, a girl who'd tried to refuse her match. They'd dragged her to the platform, made an example, and afterward, Senna had walked differently, had stopped meeting anyone's eyes, had become a ghost of herself. That was when Alara had made her decision. The drums beat harder. The first row of women stepped forward, moving toward the platform where the Alphas waited. Alara watched Mara walk with the others, her spine straight, her face carefully neutral. And then, very quietly, Alara took a step backward. Then another. Nobody noticed at first. The attention was on the front rows, on the display, on the ritual of inspection and selection. Alara kept moving, slow and steady, until she reached the edge of the crowd. The torchlight flickered across stone buildings and narrow alleys. Behind her, the forest waited, dark and forbidden and full of things the pack feared. Corvin's voice boomed across the square. "Any woman who fails to present herself will be marked as packless. She will have no protection, no standing, no future within these walls." Alara's heart hammered. Packless meant exile. It meant starvation in the wilderness or worse, becoming prey for rogues, for rival packs, for the things that hunted in the deep woods. But it also meant freedom. She turned and ran. The drums swallowed the sound of her footsteps. The forest swallowed everything else. Clum. The trees closed around her like a fist. Alara pushed through underbrush, her breath coming in ragged gasps, branches tearing at her clothes and hair. Behind her, the village lights faded to nothing. Ahead, only darkness and the whisper of wind through ancient pines. She didn't have a plan, didn't have supplies or weapons or any real idea what she'd do when the sun came up. All she had was the certainty that she couldn't go back, couldn't stand on that platform and pretend she was fine with being evaluated like livestock. Her foot caught on a root and she went down hard, palms scraping against stone and pine needles. She lay there for a moment, chest heaving, listening for pursuit. But there was nothing. No voices, no footsteps. Corvin probably hadn't even noticed she was gone yet. One missing woman among dozens, it wouldn't matter until the count came up short at the end. Alara pushed herself up, wincing at the sting in her hands. She needed to keep moving, needed to put distance between herself and... The scent hit her first. Blood. Not the clean, coppery smell of a hunting kill, but something darker, thicker, wrong in a way that made her wolf instincts scream danger. It came from somewhere ahead, carried on the wind along with something else, a chemical tang that didn't belong in these woods. Every rational thought told her to turn around, to go back, to accept whatever punishment Corvan would deliver and be grateful it wasn't worse. But Alara had never been good at listening to rational thoughts. She followed the scent. The clearing opened suddenly, bathed in moonlight that turned everything silver blue. And there, sprawled across the ground like a fallen monument, was a man. No, not just a man, an alpha. Alara knew it the way you knew a storm was coming, by the weight in the air, by the way her skin prickled with awareness. He was massive, easily 6.5 feet, his body built like violence and power. Dark hair, blood-matted, skin pale beneath the gore. His clothes were shredded, expensive fabric reduced to rags. And he was dying. She could see it in the black veins spreading from a wound in his side, in the shallow, labored breathing, in the way his fingers twitched against the earth like he was trying to fight something invisible. Poison. She'd seen it before, in hunters who'd been careless with their weapons. But this was different, worse. The blackness was spreading faster than any natural toxin, crawling up his ribs, across his chest, reaching for his heart. Alara took a step closer, then stopped. This was insane. She should leave him, should run and not look back. For all she knew, he was a rogue, an exile, someone who'd earned whatever had put him in this clearing. Getting involved with a dying alpha would bring nothing but trouble. The man's eyes opened. They were gold, pure burning gold like sunlight through whiskey, and they locked onto hers with an intensity that froze her in place. Run. His voice was gravel and smoke, barely a whisper. Not safe. His eyes rolled back and his body convulsed, spine arching off the ground. The black veins pulsed, spreading another inch toward his heart. Alara's feet were moving before her brain caught up. She dropped to her knees beside him, her hands hovering over the wound, trying to assess what she was dealing with. The injury itself wasn't fatal, a deep gash along his ribs, but nothing that should kill a full-grown alpha. It was the poison that was doing it, something that moved and lived and consumed. She'd seen this before, once. Years ago in a book her mother had shown her, a forbidden text about old magic and older threats. Shadowbane, a weapon that didn't exist anymore, that hadn't been used in decades because the knowledge of how to make it had died with... No, that didn't matter now. What mattered was that if she didn't do something, this man would be dead in minutes. Alara pressed her hands against the wound, feeling the unnatural heat of the poison burning beneath his skin. She closed her eyes, reaching for something she'd spent her whole life hiding, something she'd been taught to suppress because using it meant drawing attention, meant becoming a target, meant... Light flared beneath her palms. The man's body jerked. Alara felt the power rushing out of her, pouring into him like water into cracked earth. It wasn't healing, not exactly. It was more like holding, binding, creating a barrier between the poison and his heart, buying time, buying seconds that might turn into minutes if she was strong enough. The clearing filled with silver light. Her light. The thing she'd kept secret her entire life because women with power were dangerous, were claimed faster, were controlled harder. She felt the moment the poison recognized her presence. It pushed back, hungry and vicious, trying to consume her the way it had consumed him. Alara gritted her teeth and held on, wrapping her power around the darkness, containing it, refusing to let it spread. "Stop," the man gasped beneath her. "You'll kill yourself." "Shut up," Alara snapped. "I'm saving you, you ungrateful—" The poison surged. Pain exploded through her hands, up her arms, a burning, freezing agony that made her vision white out. She felt it trying to crawl into her, trying to find her heart the way it had found his. And then something else happened. Something snapped into place between them. A connection, a thread, a bond that felt like recognition and terror and inevitability all at once. Alara gasped as power flooded back into her, not hers but his, ancient and vast and utterly overwhelming. It caught the poison, crushed it, drove it back toward the wound where her light was still burning. Together, his strength and her healing, they cornered the darkness, contained it, and then, slowly, agonizingly, began to burn it away. Time stopped meaning anything. There was only the work, the focus, the desperate struggle against something that wanted them both dead. Alara poured everything she had into the fight, every scrap of power she'd hoarded her whole life, every ounce of stubborn will that had gotten her through 23 years in a pack that didn't want her. And finally, the poison died. Alara collapsed forward, her hands still pressed against the man's chest, her body shaking with exhaustion. The light faded. The clearing went dark again, just moonlight and shadow. The man's chest rose and fell beneath her palms. Steady, strong, alive. "What did you do?" he whispered. Alara lifted her head to look at him. His eyes were still that impossible gold, but now they were clear, focused, aware, and there was something in them she couldn't name. Shock, maybe, or fear, or something that looked dangerously close to awe. "I saved you," she said. Her voice came out hoarse, exhausted. "You're welcome, by the way." His hand came up to catch her wrist, his grip gentle despite the strength in it. "You shouldn't have. That poison, it would have killed you." "Yeah, well," Alara tried to pull away but found she didn't have the strength. "I've already made one terrible decision tonight. Might as well go for two." The corner of his mouth twitched. It might have been a smile. "Who are you?" "Nobody important." She could feel the bond between them humming, that strange connection that had saved them both. It should have faded when the crisis passed, should have dissolved back into nothing. But it hadn't. If anything, it was getting stronger. "Who are you?" Before he could answer, voices echoed through the trees. "Tracks lead this way. Blood trail, fresh. Corvin wants her found before dawn." Alara's blood went cold. They'd noticed her absence. They'd sent hunters. The man's grip on her wrist tightened. "You're in trouble." "No shit." She tried to stand and her legs nearly gave out. Using that much power had drained her completely. She'd be lucky if she could walk, let alone run. "Listen to me." His voice had changed, taken on a tone of absolute command. "When they get here, you're going to tell them you found me wounded. You tried to help, that's all. They'll drag me back to the village. I know. Let them." His gold eyes bore into hers. "I will come for you, I swear it." "You don't even know me," Alara said. "I know you saved my life when you should have run. I know you risked yourself for a stranger." He sat up, moving with surprising strength for someone who'd been dying minutes ago. "And I know that bond between us is real. I can feel it. You can too." She could. That thread of connection, singing between them like a live wire. The voices were getting closer. "What's your name?" the man asked urgently. "Alara Vance." "Alara." He said it like he was memorizing it, like it was something precious. "I'm Kaelin Drakey, and when I come back for you, everything is going to change." The name meant nothing to her. Just another alpha, probably. Powerful, but not... Torchlight broke through the trees. "There!" someone shouted. Alara tried to move away from Kaelin, tried to put distance between them, but her body wasn't cooperating. Strong hands grabbed her arms, hauling her back. She caught a glimpse of Kaelin's face. Fierce, protective, furious, before pack hunters moved between them, blocking her view. "We found her, sir," one of them called back toward the trees. "And there's someone else here. Looks like he's been..." Corvin Greaves stepped into the clearing. He was everything an alpha was supposed to be. Powerful, commanding, radiating authority like a weapon. His eyes swept the scene. Alara held between two hunters. Kaelin sitting upright with blood still coating his skin, the disturbed earth where their struggle against the poison had taken place. His smile was sharp as broken glass. "Well, well," Corvin said softly. "Little Alara finally does something interesting." "I found him wounded," Alara said quickly, using Kaelin's script. "I was trying to help." "Of course you were." Corvin walked closer, circling her like prey. "And where exactly were you when you found him? Because it certainly wasn't at the claiming where you were supposed to be." Silence. Alara's mind raced, trying to find an answer that wouldn't make things worse. I ran, she said finally. From the ceremony. I know that was wrong. Wrong? Corvin's laugh was cold. It was treasonous. It was a rejection of pack law and pack tradition. It was enough. Kalen's voice cut through the clearing like a blade. He stood now, moving with a fluid grace that seemed impossible for someone who'd been poisoned minutes ago. The hunters shifted nervously, their grips on Alara tightening. Even Corvan paused, his expression shifting from smug satisfaction to wary assessment. This woman saved my life, Kalen said. His voice was quiet, but it carried weight that made the air feel heavy. Whatever laws she broke, whatever punishment you think she deserves, it can wait until— You don't give orders here, stranger. Corvin's hand dropped to the knife at his belt. I don't know who you are or where you came from, but this is Silverwood territory. My territory. And in my territory, I decide what happens to those who break our laws. Kalen smiled. It wasn't a friendly expression. Your territory, he repeated softly. Tell me, Corvin Greaves of the Silverwood Pack, how long do you think you'll keep it? Corvin's eyes narrowed. Is that a threat? It's a prediction. Kalen took a step forward. The hunters between them scrambled backward despite themselves. Because when my warriors arrive, and they will arrive, they're going to have questions about why their king was left to die in your woods, about who poisoned him, about which packs were involved in the attempt on his life. The temperature in the clearing dropped 10 degrees. King, the word hung in the air like a death sentence. Alara's mind reeled. Kalen Drake. She knew that name now, knew it the way everyone knew it, from whispered stories, from legends, from the kind of reputation that made pack leaders nervous and enemies disappear. He wasn't just an alpha. He was the Alpha King, ruler of the Northern Territories, commander of the largest pack coalition in the region. And she'd just saved his life with forbidden magic in front of her pack leader. Corvin had gone very still. His eyes moved from Kalen to Alara and back again, calculation replacing anger. Your Majesty, he said finally, his tone shifting to something that might have been respect if you didn't hear the ambition underneath. I had no idea. If I'd known you were in our territory, you would have what? Kalen's voice was ice. Mounted a search party? Offered aid? Or would you have done exactly what you did, nothing, while you hoped I'd die and remove a political obstacle? I would never— Save it. Kalen's gaze swept the hunters, dismissive and cold. I need rest, food, and answers about who knew I was traveling this route. His eyes found Alara again, holding her there. And I need this woman kept safe. Corvin's jaw tightened. She broke pack law. I don't care. 3 words, absolutely final. She saved my life. That puts her under my protection until I say otherwise. Touch her, and we'll have a different conversation. The hunter's grips on Alara's arms loosened slightly. Corvin looked like he'd swallowed something bitter, but he nodded stiffly. Of course, Your Majesty. We'll see to your comfort immediately. He gestured to the hunters. Take him to the guest house. Get healers, food, whatever he needs. And her? Kalen asked. Corvin's smile returned, thin and dangerous. She'll be looked after. You have my word. It was the kind of promise that meant nothing and everything. Alara felt the hunters pulling her away, felt the distance opening between her and Kalen like a physical ache. That bond between them stretched, tightened, but didn't break. Kalen's eyes stayed locked on hers as they led him in one direction and her in another. She saw the promise there, fierce and unshakable. I will come back for you. And then the trees swallowed them both, and Alara was alone with her captors and the slow, creeping certainty that her life had just changed in ways she couldn't begin to understand. They threw her in the lower cells, not the holding rooms where petty offenders waited out their sentences, but the deep cells, the ones carved into bedrock beneath the pack house, the ones reserved for traitors and rogues. Alara hit the stone floor hard, her exhausted body offering no resistance. The door slammed shut behind her with a finality that echoed off damp walls. Darkness swallowed everything except the thin line of torchlight bleeding under the door. She lay there for a long moment, listening to footsteps fade away, to the silence pressing in. Her hands throbbed where she'd channeled power. Her whole body ached with a bone-deep weariness that came from using magic she'd kept suppressed for years. But underneath it all, she could still feel it, that bond. that connection to Kaelin, humming in her chest like a second heartbeat. She didn't understand it, didn't know what it meant or why it had formed or what it would cost her. All she knew was that it was real, and it was growing stronger by the minute. Alara pushed herself upright, her back against the cold stone wall. Above her, she could hear the sounds of the pack house coming alive. Footsteps, voices, the organized chaos of people scrambling to accommodate unexpected royalty. She'd saved his life, she'd used forbidden magic. She'd created a bond with the Alpha King, and Corvin Greaves had seen all of it. Alara closed her eyes and tried not to think about what dawn would bring. But she couldn't help the small, defiant smile that tugged at her lips. For the first time in her life, she'd made a choice that was entirely her own. She'd chosen compassion over survival, had chosen to help instead of hide. And even sitting in a cell with no future and no plan, she couldn't bring herself to regret it. Somewhere above her, in a guest house being prepared with desperate haste, Kaelin Drake was alive. That had to count for something. Dawn came with the sound of boots on stone. Alara jerked awake, her body protesting every movement. She'd fallen asleep against the wall sometime in the dark hours, exhaustion finally winning over fear. Now pale light filtered through the cell's single-barred window, and footsteps were approaching down the corridor. She pushed herself upright, trying to ignore the way her muscles screamed. The bond in her chest pulsed, steady, insistent, alive. Kaelin was awake somewhere above her. She could feel it like an echo of his heartbeat against her own ribs. The cell door swung open. 2 guards stood there, faces neutral, weapons visible. Behind them, Mara peered in, her expression caught between concern and something that looked uncomfortably like pity. "On your feet," one of the guards said, not unkind, but not gentle either. "Pack leader wants you." Alara stood, swaying slightly. Her cousin stepped forward, pressing a water skin into her hands. "Drink," Mara whispered. "You look like death." The water was cold and clean. Alara drained half of it before the guards pulled her forward, out of the cell, and up the stairs. Her legs threatened to give out twice before they reached ground level. The packhouse's great hall had been transformed overnight. What was usually a spare meeting room now held tables laden with food, fresh rushes on the floor, banners hung to hide water stains on the walls. And at the center of it all, sitting in Corvin's own chair like he owned it, was Kaelin. He looked nothing like the dying man from the forest. Clean, dressed in borrowed clothes that fit poorly across his shoulders, he radiated power that made the air feel thick. His gold eyes found Alara the moment she entered, and something fierce and possessive flashed across his face before he locked it down. Corvin stood beside him, playing the gracious host with all the sincerity of a snake offering hospitality to a mouse. Around them, the pack's inner circle gathered, warriors, advisors, the kind of people who'd spent their lives navigating pack politics. They all turned to stare when the guards brought Alara in. "Ah, there she is." Corvin's smile was cold as winter. "Your Majesty, the woman who saved your life, Alara Vance, Omega-born 23, currently facing charges of desertion and defiance of pack law." Omega-born. He'd thrown that in deliberately, a reminder that Alara came from the weakest bloodline, the lowest rung. It was meant to diminish her, to make Kaelin question why he was bothering with someone so insignificant. Kaelin's expression didn't change. "Release her." "Your Majesty, with respect, she's still under pack jurisdiction. I said release her." 3 words, each one carrying the weight of absolute authority. The guards let go of Alara's arms immediately. She stood there, caught between Kaelin's intensity and Corvin's barely concealed rage, trying not to collapse. Kaelin rose from his chair, moving toward her with fluid grace. The bond between them sang louder with every step he took, until he was close enough that she could see the faint silver scars on his jaw, could smell pine and snow, and something uniquely him. "How badly did they hurt you?" His voice was quiet, meant only for her. "I'm fine," Alara lied. His hand came up to her chin, tilting her face toward the light. His touch was gentle, but there was nothing gentle about the fury in his eyes as he catalogued whatever damage he saw there. "You're shaking." "I used a lot of power last night." She pulled back slightly, aware of all the eyes watching them. "I'll recover." "You saved my life with magic that should have killed you." Kaelin's thumb brushed across her cheekbone, a gesture so intimate it made her breath catch. "That kind of power, I've never seen anything like it. What are you, Alara Vance?" "Trouble," she said. "Apparently." The corner of his mouth twitched. almost a smile. Then he turned back to Corvan, his hand dropping from her face but staying close to her shoulder, protective and possessive. "We need to talk. Privately." Corvin's jaw tightened. "Of course, Your Majesty. Though I hope you'll understand that given the circumstances, Kaelin interrupted, are that someone poisoned me with Shadowbane on a secure route that only 3 people knew I was traveling. One of those people was my second-in-command, who's dead. One was my head scout, also dead. The third was a pack leader who I foolishly trusted with sensitive information." The hall went deadly quiet. Corvin's face drained of color. "You think Your Majesty, I swear on my pack's honor, I had nothing to do with— Then you won't mind if my warriors search your territory when they arrive." Kaelin's voice was perfectly pleasant and absolutely terrifying. "They should be here by midday. Until then, I'll need proper accommodations. A room, privacy, and—" His hand moved to Alara's shoulder, claiming her in front of everyone. "I'll need her with me." "That's not—" Corvin started. "Not what? Appropriate?" Kaelin's laugh was sharp. "This woman risked everything to save my life. She created a healing bond strong enough to burn Shadowbane out of my blood, something that should be impossible. And you want me to leave her in your cells while you decide how to punish her for missing your little ceremony?" Murmurs rippled through the gathered pack members. Alara felt their stares like physical weight, shock, confusion, envy, calculation. She'd gone from nobody to the center of pack politics in the span of one night. "The bond," one of the advisors spoke up, an older woman named Thessa. "Healing bonds don't work that way. They require—" "I know what they require," Kaelin said coldly. "Believe me, I'm aware of what happened between us." Alara's stomach dropped. She'd been so focused on survival that she hadn't stopped to think about what kind of bond they'd created, what it meant, what it would cost. Healing bonds were rare, dangerous, and deeply intimate. They required complete trust, absolute connection, and usually only formed between mates, which meant everyone in this room now assumed she and Kaelin were— "I need rest," Kaelin said, cutting through the rising whispers. "Show me to a room. Now." Corvin looked like he wanted to argue, but he wasn't stupid enough to push a king who'd just survived an assassination attempt. He gestured sharply to one of his people. "The East Wing, our finest room. And her?" Kaelin nodded toward Alara. "She stays with you, apparently." Corvin's smile was poisonous. "Though I hope Your Majesty understands that by claiming her so publicly, you've made her your responsibility. Whatever consequences follow will be mine to handle," Kaelin finished. "I'm aware." He took Alara's hand, not gently, but not roughly either, and pulled her toward the door. She stumbled after him, her body still weak, her mind reeling from everything that had just happened. They climbed stairs in silence. Kaelin didn't let go of her hand, his grip warm and solid and anchoring. She could feel his anger through the bond, could feel something else too. Worry, maybe, or fear. Emotions too complex to name. The room they were given was clearly the best the pack house had to offer. A real bed with clean linens, a fireplace already lit. Windows that looked out over the forest. It would have been comfortable if it didn't feel like a cage. The door closed behind them with a soft click. Kaelin released her hand and moved to the window, checking sight lines, security, escape routes. His whole posture had changed. Less king, more warrior, calculating threats and vulnerabilities. "Sit down before you fall down," he said without turning around. Alara made it to a chair near the fire and collapsed into it. Her hands were still shaking. She pressed them flat against her thighs, trying to force them still. "We need to talk about what happened," Kaelin said. "I know." "That wasn't just a healing bond." He turned to face her now, his expression carefully neutral. "That was a mate bond," Alara finished. The words felt like stones in her mouth. "Or the beginning of one." Silence. Heavy and suffocating. "You knew?" Kaelin asked quietly. "I figured it out somewhere between the cell and this room." Alara met his eyes, refusing to look away. "Healing bonds don't feel like this. Don't pull this hard, and they definitely don't stabilize Shadowbane poisoning, which means what we did went way beyond normal magic." Kaelin crossed to the other chair and sat, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. Up close, she could see the exhaustion in his face, the toll the poison had taken even with her healing. "This is a problem. I noticed. Mate bonds don't happen by accident. They're chosen, intentional, built over time between compatible partners. His jaw tightened. They don't just snap into place because someone happens to be dying and someone else happens to have miracle healing powers. And yet here we are, Alara said. Here we are. He scrubbed a hand over his face. Do you understand what this means? What Korvan will do with this information? Use it against both of us, probably. She was too tired to be afraid of the obvious. You've got enemies who'll see this as weakness. I've got a pack leader who's going to milk this for every advantage he can get. It's worse than that. Kaelin stood abruptly, pacing to the window and back. If this bond is real, if it completes, you become my queen, my equal in power, my partner in ruling the northern territories. You'll have enemies you can't imagine, threats that will come from directions you never thought to look. Alara laughed, the sound sharp and slightly hysterical. Yesterday I was worried about being claimed by some mediocre alpha and forced into a breeding contract. Today, I'm accidentally bonded to a king and facing political assassination. I'm moving up in the world. This isn't funny. It's a little funny. She leaned back in the chair, closing her eyes. What happens if we don't complete it? The silence that followed was answer enough. We die, Kaelin said finally. Maybe not immediately, but incomplete mate bonds deteriorate. They become poison, eating away at both partners until there's nothing left. Of course they do. Alara opened her eyes to find him watching her with an intensity that made her chest tight. And completing it means what exactly? A claiming ceremony, blood exchange, recognition from both our packs. He moved closer, crouching beside her chair so they were eye level. It means binding our lives together permanently. No separation, no divorce, no way out. Ever? Ever. Alara should have been terrified, should have been planning escape routes, looking for ways to break a bond that neither of them had asked for. But all she could think about was the way he'd looked at her in that clearing, the way he'd promised to come back for her, the way his hand had felt against her face. I don't even know you, she said quietly. I know. His gold eyes held hers. But I know you ran from a claiming ceremony rather than submit. I know you risked death to save a stranger. I know you've got power that most people spend their whole lives looking for, and you kept it hidden because using it would have made you a target. He reached up, his fingers brushing against her temple, where she could feel the bond humming. I know that in the middle of dying, the last thing I saw was your face, and I know that when I woke up and you were gone, it felt like someone had torn half my soul away. Alara's breath caught. Kaelin. A knock at the door shattered the moment. Kaelin was on his feet instantly, his whole body shifting into a defensive stance. What? Your Majesty. The voice from the other side was young, nervous. Your warriors have arrived. They're requesting immediate audience. Relief flooded Kaelin's face. Tell them I'll be down in 5 minutes. There's something else, sir. What? Pack leader Greaves has called an emergency council. He's demanding answers about the bond, about the woman, about... The voice faltered. He's saying she used forbidden magic to trap you, that she's dangerous, that she needs to be contained before she hurts someone. Alara felt the blood drain from her face. Of course Corvin would twist it. Of course he'd turn her healing into something sinister, her salvation into a crime. Kaelin's expression went cold as winter stone. Tell Corvin I'll address his council when I'm ready, not before. He said if you don't come now, he'll bring his warriors here and take her by force. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. He said, what? Kaelin's voice was soft, dangerous. I'm just the messenger, Your Majesty. I'm just telling you what... Get out. The footsteps retreated quickly. Kaelin turned to Alara, and she saw murder in his eyes. Not directed at her, never at her, but cold and calculating and absolutely serious. He's not taking you anywhere. He's got 50 warriors in this pack house, Alara said. You've got however many just arrived. If this turns into a fight, then it turns into a fight. Kaelin moved to the door, his hand on the latch. Stay here. Lock this behind me. Don't open it for anyone except me or my second Theron. He's got a scar across his left eye. You can't miss him. Where are you going? To have a conversation with your pack leader about boundaries and consequences. His smile was sharp enough to cut. This won't take long. Kaelin, wait! But he was already gone, the door swinging shut behind him. Alara sat frozen for a heartbeat, then lunged forward and threw the bolt. Her hand shook as she pressed her back against the wood, listening to his footsteps fade down the hall. The bond in her chest pulled tight, anxious, aware that he was walking into danger. She should stay here, should follow his orders and wait for him to come back, should trust that he knew what he was doing. But Alara had never been good at following orders. She pressed her palms against the door, reaching for that well of power she'd used last night. It was depleted, exhausted, but not empty. There was enough, just barely enough. Light flickered beneath her hands. She felt the lock mechanism, felt the wood and iron, felt the structure of the door itself. And then, very carefully, she unmade it, not breaking, but dissolving the bolt back into its component pieces, opening the way. The hallway was empty. Alara slipped out, closing the door silently behind her. She could hear voices from below, angry, overlapping, building towards something explosive. She moved toward the stairs, keeping to the shadows, every instinct screaming that this was a terrible idea. The great hall was packed. Kalen stood at the center like a pillar of ice, surrounded by his own warriors, hard-eyed men and women who looked like they'd been born fighting. Across from them, Corvan had assembled his inner circle, all of them armed, all of them radiating hostility. Simply asking for transparency, Corvan was saying, his voice pitched to carry to the crowd gathering at the edges. This woman appears from nowhere, claims to have saved your life with magic that violates natural law, and now you're bound to her? Your Majesty, surely you can understand our concern. Your concern, Kalen said coldly, or your ambition? Corvan's smile didn't waver. I'm thinking of the Northern Territories. A king bonded to an Omega-born nobody with dangerous, uncontrolled power. What happens when that power turns against you? Against all of us? She saved my life. Or she poisoned you first and then saved you to create exactly this situation. Corvan spread his hands, reasonable, rational, poisonous. It's not unheard of. Trap an alpha with a forced bond, gain access to power you could never earn. That's not what happened, Alara said. Every head in the room turned toward her. She stood at the top of the stairs, her heart hammering, very aware that she'd just disobeyed a direct order from a king and walked into a room full of people who wanted her dead or controlled, or both. Kalen's expression cycled through shock, anger, and something that might have been reluctant admiration. I told you to stay in the room. I'm not good at following orders, Alara said. She descended the stairs slowly, chin up, refusing to show fear. And I'm not going to hide while people make up lies about what I did. You used forbidden magic, Thessa spoke up from Corvan's side. Magic that hasn't been practiced in decades because it's too dangerous, too unpredictable. Where did you even learn it? I didn't learn it. Alara reached the bottom of the stairs, very conscious of all the eyes on her. I was born with it, and I kept it hidden my entire life because I knew what people would do if they found out. So you admit it, Corvan pounced. You've been concealing dangerous abilities, lying to your pack. I kept my head down and tried to survive, Alara snapped, which in this pack means making yourself small and invisible and hoping the alphas don't notice you long enough to ruin your life. So yes, I hid what I could do. I hid it because I knew you'd use it against me. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, some shocked, some agreeing, some angry. This is exactly the kind of defiance I'm talking about, Corvan said, turning to address the room. She has no respect for authority, no loyalty to pack structure. She has more courage than half the people in this room, Kalen cut in. His voice was quiet, but it silenced everyone. She ran toward danger when she should have run away. She gave everything she had to save a stranger's life, and now she's standing here facing a council that wants to punish her for being decent. He moved to Alara's side, his presence solid and protective. You want to question her magic? Fine. Bring your best healers, your strongest warriors. Let them examine what she did and explain how it was possible. But don't stand there and call her a liar when none of you would have had the strength to do what she did. The bond, Thessa started, is real, Kalen said. It's real and it's strong, and it formed because we were compatible in ways that go beyond politics or planning. If you want to challenge that, Thessa, you're welcome to try. But you won't like what you find. The older woman's face tightened, but she said nothing. Corvan's expression had gone calculating. If the bond is real, then complete it. Prove it. Perform the claiming ceremony here, in front of witnesses, and let us see whether this connection is genuine or manufactured. No, Alara said immediately. Every eye swung back to her. Alara, Kaelin started. He's trying to trap us. She kept her gaze locked on Corvan, reading the satisfaction in his eyes. If we complete the bond now, under duress, it proves nothing, and it gives him exactly what he wants. A way to claim he forced the Alpha King into a political marriage, a way to hold leverage over both of us. Kaelin's hand found hers, his fingers threading through her own. Through the bond, she felt his approval, his pride, his absolute trust in her instincts. She's right, he said. We'll complete the bond when we're ready. Not before. And until then, Corvan pressed, she remains a security threat, a woman with uncontrolled power and unknown loyalties. She remains under my protection, Kaelin finished. She comes with me when I leave. She stays at my side until we figure out what this bond means and how to handle it. Anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with me directly. The threat was clear as crystal. Corvan's smile had gone brittle. Of course, Your Majesty. Though I wonder, what happens if the bond fails? What happens if it turns out to be unstable, dangerous, a threat to you both? Then we'll deal with it, Kaelin said. But Alara felt it. The first flicker of something wrong, a heat in her chest, spreading through her ribs like fever. The bond pulsed, erratic, struggling against something invisible. She swayed, and Kaelin's grip on her hand tightened instantly. Alara? I'm fine, she managed. The heat was building, burning through her veins like liquid fire. I just need... Her knees gave out. Kaelin caught her before she hit the floor, his arms wrapping around her waist. The bond between them flared white-hot, painful, desperate. What's happening? His voice cut through the rising murmurs. Thessa, what's happening to her? The older woman pushed forward, her expression shifting from hostility to clinical focus. She pressed fingers to Alara's wrist, her forehead, checking pulse and temperature with practiced efficiency. The bond, she said grimly, it's incomplete and unstable. Her body's trying to complete it on its own, but without the proper ceremony, without both partners committed. It's tearing her apart from the inside. No. Kaelin's arms tightened around Alara. We just formed it last night. It's too soon for... It shouldn't have formed at all without intent, Thessa snapped. But it did, which means the compatibility between you is dangerously strong. Strong enough that her magic is trying to force completion, whether you're ready or not. She met Kaelin's eyes. You have maybe 2 days, 3 at most. After that, either you complete the bond, or she dies. The room erupted into chaos. Alara barely heard it. The pain was spreading, consuming, making it hard to breathe. She could feel her magic writhing inside her, trying to reach for Kaelin, trying to complete what they'd started. Get everyone out, Kaelin ordered. His voice cut through the noise like a blade. Now! Warriors moved, herding people toward the exits. Corvan lingered, his expression caught between triumph and concern. Your Majesty, if you need our healers, get out. Corvan went, and then there was just Kaelin, holding her while her body tried to consume itself, while the bond screamed for completion, while everything she'd tried to control came unraveled. I'm sorry, Alara gasped. I didn't know it would... Stop talking. Kaelin lifted her easily, carrying her back toward the stairs. Save your strength. We're going to figure this out. 2 days, she whispered. Kaelin, that's not enough time to... I said we're going to figure it out. His jaw was set, determined, absolutely refusing to accept the alternative. I didn't survive assassination and poison just to lose you to an incomplete bond. He kicked open the door to their room and laid her on the bed with surprising gentleness. The bond pulsed between them, desperate, demanding, alive. What do we need? Alara asked. For the ceremony. What? Blood exchange, verbal commitment, witnesses from both packs. Kaelin sat beside her, his hand finding hers again. But more than that, we need to actually want it. Both of us. Completely. No reservations. A forced claiming won't work. And you don't want it. I didn't say that. Alara looked at him, really looked at him, saw the conflict in his face, the way he was torn between duty and something else, something fiercer. You barely know me, she said quietly, and I barely know you. How are we supposed to commit to forever when we've known each other less than a day? Kaelin's thumb traced circles on the back of her hand. I know that you're brave. I know that you're stubborn as hell. I know that you saved my life when you should have saved yourself. His gold eyes held hers. And I know that this bond, broken or complete, is the most real thing I've felt in years. The pain in her chest flared, then settled slightly. The bond recognized his words, fed on them, grew stronger. We don't have time to do this right, Alara said. No, Kaelin agreed, we don't. So we have a choice. Rush into something neither of us is ready for, or, there is no or, he interrupted. I'm not letting you die. Whatever that takes, whatever we have to do, I'm not losing you. Even if it means binding yourself to someone you don't love? The question hung between them, heavy and honest. Kaelin leaned forward, his forehead resting against hers, his breath warm against her skin. Ask me that again in 2 days. After we've had time to talk, to figure out what this is between us. Ask me then, and I'll give you a real answer. And if the answer is no, then we'll die together, he said simply. Better that than living with regret. Alara's breath shuddered out. She should argue, should fight, should find some way out of this impossible situation. But all she could think about was the way he'd looked at her in the clearing, the way his touch felt like coming home, the way the bond sang between them like something inevitable and right. Okay, she whispered. 2 days, we'll figure it out. Kaelin pulled back enough to meet her eyes. You're not scared? Terrified, Alara admitted, but I've been scared my whole life. At least this time I'm scared of something that might actually be worth it. His smile was brief but genuine. Get some rest. I'll have my healers check you over, make sure the bond isn't deteriorating faster than we think. And then? And then we start getting to know each other. Kaelin stood, his hand reluctant to leave hers. Fast. He moved toward the door, then paused, looking back at her. Alara? Thank you for saving me, for being stubborn enough to walk into that council, for... He faltered, searching for words. For being you. Then he was gone, and Alara was alone with the bond burning in her chest, and the terrifying certainty that 2 days would either save her life or end it. She closed her eyes and felt the heat spreading through her veins, felt her magic writhing and desperate, felt the bond pulling her toward a future she'd never imagined. The door opened again. She opened her eyes expecting Kaelin, but instead found a scarred warrior with one eye milky white and useless. Theron, she realized. His second. He sent me to watch the door, Theron said without preamble. Also to tell you that if you sneak out again, he's going to tie you to the bedpost. He can try, Alara muttered. Theron's laugh was rough as gravel. I like you. Most people cower when they meet him. You argued with him in front of his entire council. Most people don't have a death sentence hanging over them. Fair point. Theron leaned against the doorframe, relaxed but watchful. For what it's worth, I've known Kaelin 15 years. Fought beside him, bled with him, watched him turn down every potential mate the councils threw at him. Never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you. We just met. Yeah. Theron's good eye studied her thoughtfully. That's what makes it interesting. Before Alara could respond, pain lanced through her chest, sharp, vicious, stealing her breath. She gasped, curling in on herself, feeling the bond fracture another degree. Theron was moving instantly, shouting for healers. And Alara, drowning in fire and magic and impossible choices, could only hold on and hope that 2 days would be enough. The healers worked through the night, but nothing they did made a difference. Alara lay in the bed, her body racked with tremors, as the incomplete bond ate away at her from the inside. Every breath felt like swallowing glass. Every heartbeat sent fresh waves of fire through her veins. The magic that had saved Kaelin's life was now consuming hers, desperately trying to complete what they'd started. Kaelin hadn't left her side in 12 hours. He sat in the chair beside the bed, his hand wrapped around hers, his face carved from stone and exhaustion. Through the bond, she could feel his fury, at himself, at the situation, at the impossibility of what they were facing. Drink this. Thessa pressed a cup to Alara's lips. The liquid inside smelled like rotted earth and tasted worse. It'll slow the deterioration. Buy us a few more hours. Alara forced it down, gagging. How many hours? Maybe 6. Maybe less. Thessa's face was grim. The bond is fighting itself. Your magic wants to complete the connection, but without both partners fully committed, it's just burning through your life force. So we complete it, Kaelin said. His voice was rough, scraped raw. Now, whatever we need to do, it won't work. Thessa set the cup aside with more force than necessary. I've told you this 6 times already, Your Majesty. A forced claiming under duress doesn't complete a mate bond, it corrupts it. You'd both die anyway, just slower and more painfully. Then what do we do? The words came out somewhere between a roar and a plea. You figure out if this is real, Thessa snapped. You decide if you actually want each other or if you're just trying to avoid death, because the bond knows the difference, and it won't be fooled. She swept out of the room, leaving them alone except for Theron standing guard by the door. Silence pressed in, broken only by Alara's labored breathing. This is my fault, she whispered. I should have just let you die in that clearing. Kaylin's hand tightened around hers. Don't. It's true. You'd be fine. I'd be fine. We'd both be dead or worse. He leaned forward, his gold eyes intense. You saved my life, Alara. Whatever happens now, that doesn't change. Even if we both die anyway? Even then. She wanted to believe him, wanted to believe that her choice in that clearing had been worth it, that saving him hadn't just delayed both their deaths by a few days. But the pain made it hard to think, hard to feel anything except the bond screaming for completion. Tell me something, Alara said. Something real. Not about being a king or pack politics or any of that. Just something true. Kaylin was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer than she'd ever heard it. I was 8 when my father died. Killed in a challenge he should have won by an alpha who cheated and got away with it because nobody had the courage to call him out. He stared at their joined hands. My mother tried to hold the pack together, but she wasn't strong enough. We lost everything. Ended up in a border territory, fighting for scraps, watching people we loved die because we couldn't protect them. Alara's chest tightened, and it had nothing to do with the bond. I swore I'd never be weak again, Kaylin continued. Spent 15 years fighting my way back up, taking territory, building alliances, becoming strong enough that nobody could ever do to me what they did to my family. His thumb traced circles on the back of her hand. And then I meet you. And suddenly all that strength, all that power, it doesn't matter, because I can't protect you from this. You're trying, Alara said. Trying isn't enough. She understood that. Had felt the same helplessness her whole life, watching her mother work herself to death trying to provide for them, watching friends accept terrible matches because they had no other choice. Trying had never been enough in a world that rewarded strength and crushed everything else. Tell me something about you, Kaylin said. Something I wouldn't know from looking at pack records or listening to Korvan's speeches. Alara closed her eyes, searching for something worth sharing. My mother could sing. Really sing. The kind that made people stop whatever they were doing just to listen. She used to perform at gatherings before she got pregnant with me. The memory hurt, but it was a good hurt. After my father left, after we had nothing, she'd still sing, just for me, just these old songs about hope and fighting and refusing to break. What happened to her? She died when I was 16. Worked herself sick in the labor camps, then got sicker, and by the time the healers bothered to look at her, it was too late. Alara opened her eyes, meeting his gaze. She made me promise I'd never let anyone make me small. Never let them convince me I was worth less than I was. You kept that promise, Kaylin said. Yeah, look where it got me. A bitter laugh escaped her throat. Dying in a stranger's bed because I was stupid enough to use forbidden magic. You're not dying. The words came out fierce, absolute. I won't let you. Before Alara could respond, shouting erupted from somewhere below. Footsteps pounded upstairs. Theron straightened from his position by the door, his hand moving to his weapon. The door burst open. Korvan stood there, flanked by 6 warriors, all armed. His face was flushed with something between triumph and rage. Step away from her, Your Majesty. Kaylin rose slowly, placing himself between Korvan and the bed. Get out. I can't do that. Korvan's smile was sharp. New information has come to light. Information that changes everything. What information? Korvan gestured, and one of his warriors stepped forward carrying a leather satchel. He dumped the contents onto the floor. Vials, small bags of powder, dried herbs that Alara recognized with growing horror. Shadowbane components. We found these in her home, Korvan said, hidden under the floorboards, along with detailed notes on poison preparation and which routes you'd be traveling, Your Majesty. The air went deadly still. That's not possible, Alara said. Her voice came out weak, thready. I've never touched Shadowbane in my life. The evidence suggests otherwise. Corvin's expression was perfectly reasonable, perfectly false. It appears you poisoned him, then saved him to create the bond. Exactly what I warned about. That's a lie. Kalen's voice cut like a blade. Someone planted that evidence. Of course you'd defend her. You're bonded, compromised. Corvin shook his head with mock sympathy. Which is why I'm invoking emergency protocol. Until we determine the truth, she needs to be contained. Touch her, and I'll kill you where you stand. Corvan's warriors shifted, hands on weapons. Theron moved to Kalen's side, ready for violence. You're outnumbered, Corvin said, and your own men are outside dealing with a convenient disturbance in the village. It's just you, your second, and 6 of my best warriors. Be reasonable, Your Majesty. Let us take her into custody while we investigate. No. The word dropped like a stone. Corvin's expression hardened. Then you leave me no choice. He made a gesture. His warriors surged forward. Kalen moved like lightning. He caught the first warrior with a strike that sent the man crashing into the wall. Theron took down 2 more with brutal efficiency. But there were too many, and Kalen was still recovering from the poison, still weak. A warrior got past him, lunging for the bed. Alara rolled, hitting the floor hard. Pain exploded through her already damaged body, but survival instinct kicked in. She scrambled backward, trying to put distance between herself and the reaching hands. Don't hurt her, Corvin's voice cut through the chaos. I need her alive! That one word, need, told Alara everything. This wasn't about justice or pack safety. This was about leverage, about having power over the Alpha King through his dying bondmate. Another warrior grabbed her arm. Alara reacted on instinct, reaching for that well of magic inside her. It came flooding out, wild and uncontrolled, silver light exploding from her hands. The warrior screamed and flew backward, hitting the wall hard enough to crack stone. The room went silent. Alara knelt on the floor, breathing hard, her hands still glowing with silver light. Every eye was on her, shock, fear, calculation. Interesting, Corvin said softly. Very interesting. Kalen used the distraction. He moved with deadly precision, taking down another warrior, then another. Theron fought beside him, and together they cleared the room in under a minute. Bodies littered the floor, unconscious or groaning. Only Corvin remained standing, his back against the wall, a knife at his throat held by Kalen's hand. Give me one reason, Kalen growled, why I shouldn't end you right now. Because killing a pack leader on his own territory would start a war. Corvin's smile never wavered. Because your council would never forgive it. Because you need me alive to prove you didn't orchestrate this whole thing yourself. You planted that evidence. Prove it. Corvin's eyes gleamed. Go ahead, Your Majesty. Search my chambers. Question my people. You won't find anything. I'm very good at covering my tracks. Kalen pressed the knife harder against his throat, drawing a thin line of blood. You're trying to control me through her, using the bond as leverage. I'm trying to survive, Corvin shot back. You think I don't know what happens to pack leaders who cross the Alpha King? I've seen the graves, Kalen. I've heard the stories, so yes, I found an advantage and I took it. That's what we do. That's what you do. Not like this. Exactly like this. Corvin's voice dropped, intimate and vicious. You've built an empire on calculated moves and ruthless decisions. Don't pretend you're better than me just because you caught feelings for some Omega girl with magic she can't control. The knife drew another line of blood. Then Kalen stepped back, lowering his weapon. You're right. I've made ruthless decisions, sacrificed people, territories, alliances, whatever it took to protect what was mine. He turned to look at Alara, still kneeling on the floor, her hands still glowing. But she's not a calculated move, and I won't sacrifice her to maintain political stability. Then you're weaker than I thought, Corvin said. Maybe. Kalen's smile was cold. Or maybe I'm finally strong enough to choose something that matters. He moved to Alara, pulling her to her feet with gentle hands. The bond between them flared, bright and desperate. She could feel his determination through it, could feel the choice he was making. We're leaving, Kalen announced. Now, and she's coming with me. You can't, Corvin said. The evidence is fabricated and we both know it. Kalen kept his arm around Alara, supporting her weight. But you're right about one thing. Killing you would start a war. So instead, I'm going to let you live with the knowledge that you failed, that you tried to manipulate a king and lost everything. What are you talking about? Kaelin's smile turned predatory. By the time I'm done, every pack in the Northern Territories will know what you did here. How you tried to control their king through a dying bondmate. How you fabricated evidence and staged an attack. Your reputation will be destroyed, your alliances will crumble. And when the other packs come for your territory, and they will, I'm going to stand back and let them take it. Corvin's face went white. That's the difference between us, Kaelin continued. You think small, control one person, gain one advantage. I think in terms of consequences that echo for years. He turned toward the door, still supporting Alara. Theron, clear us a path. With pleasure. Theron grabbed Corvan by the collar and threw him into the far corner. Anyone tries to follow us, I'll assume they're hostile. They made it into the hallway before Alara's legs gave out completely. Kaelin caught her, lifting her into his arms like she weighed nothing. The bond pulsed between them, erratic and fading. She could feel her body shutting down, the magic that had kept her alive this long finally running out. Stay with me, Kaelin said. His voice cut through the fog in her head. Just a little longer. Where are we going? Away from here, somewhere safe. He took the stairs 2 at a time, moving fast. Somewhere I can figure out how to save you. Kaelin, her voice broke. What if you can't? Not an option. They burst out of the pack house into pre-dawn light. Kaelin's warriors were there, mounted and ready. Theron appeared beside them, bloodied but grinning. Horses are ready. Corvan's men are tied up dealing with that fire we started in the grain stores. Good. Kaelin lifted Alara onto a horse, then swung up behind her. His arms came around her, solid and warm. Let's move. They rode hard, leaving the Silverwood territory behind. Alara drifted in and out of consciousness, anchored only by Kaelin's presence and the bond singing between them like a desperate prayer. She woke fully when they stopped at a fortress carved into mountain stone. Where are we? Her voice came out barely a whisper. My territory. My stronghold. Kaelin dismounted, then lifted her down with careful hands. The only place I can guarantee your safety. The fortress was massive, all dark stone and defensive walls. Warriors lined the battlements, and more poured out of the gates as they approached. A woman with silver hair and fierce eyes strode toward them, her expression shifting from curiosity to alarm when she saw Alara. Kaelin, what happened? Long story, Vera, I need healers, now. He was already moving toward the gates, Alara still in his arms. And I need every text we have on mate bonds, incomplete bonds, and bond magic. How incomplete are we talking? Vera fell into step beside them. 48 hours from formation, deteriorating fast. Vera cursed. That's... Kaelin, that's not survivable without completion. I know. They entered the fortress, moving through corridors that blurred together. Alara caught glimpses of stone walls, burning torches, faces turning to stare. Then they were in a chamber, large and warm, with a fire already burning and healers waiting. Kaelin laid her on the bed with infinite care. His hand lingered on her face, his thumb tracing her cheekbone. I'm going to fix this, he said, whatever it takes. Promise me something, Alara whispered. If you can't, if there's no way, don't let the bond take you with me. Break it. Save yourself. Alara, promise me. His jaw tightened, but he nodded. I promise. It was a lie. She could feel it through the bond. But she didn't call him on it. The healers swarmed in, pushing Kaelin back. Alara caught one last glimpse of his face, determined, terrified, absolutely refusing to accept defeat, before they surrounded her. They worked for hours, checking vitals, administering potions, consulting ancient texts. Alara felt herself slipping away by degrees, the bond burning through what little life she had left. And then Vera was there, her face grave, speaking in low tones to Kaelin just outside the door. No precedent for this. The bond is too strong, too volatile. It's trying to complete itself, but without mutual commitment, it's just consuming her. Then we complete it, Kaelin said. She's too weak. The claiming ceremony requires an exchange of power, of essence. In her state, it would kill her instantly. There has to be another way. Vera's silence was answer enough. Wait. Alara's voice cut through their conversation. Both of them turned to look at her. What if we broke it? We discussed this, Kaelin said. Breaking an incomplete bond would free you, Ilara finished. It would kill me, probably. But you'd survive. You could go back to your life, your kingdom, everything you've built. No. The word was flat, final. Kaelin, be reasonable. I said no. He moved to the bedside, taking her hand. I'm not breaking the bond. I'm not walking away. We're either surviving this together or we're not surviving at all. That's suicide. That's my choice. Ilara wanted to argue, wanted to make him see reason, but the bond between them was singing, bright and fierce, fed by his words and his absolute conviction. And then something shifted. The pain in her chest changed, not gone, but different, sharper, more focused. The bond pulsed once, twice, then stabilized at a new rhythm. Vera leaned forward, checking her pulse. What just happened? I don't know. Ilara pressed a hand to her chest, feeling the bond humming beneath her ribs. It stopped deteriorating. That's not possible. Incomplete bonds don't stabilize. They only... Vera stopped, her eyes widening. Unless the commitment is there. Kaelin, what did you just do? He looked at Ilara, his expression raw and honest. I chose her. Completely. No reservations, no strategic thinking, no backup plans. I chose her, and the bond felt it. That's only half of it, Vera said. She turned to Ilara. What about you? Have you chosen him? Ilara's throat tightened. She thought about the clearing, about saving a stranger when every instinct screamed to run. She thought about the way Kaelin had defended her, had refused to sacrifice her for political gain. She thought about the bond between them, that impossible connection that felt like recognition and inevitability and home. Yes, she whispered. I choose him. The bond flared white-hot. Ilara gasped as power surged through her, not her own magic, but Kaelin's, flooding into her through their connection. It felt like standing in a lightning strike, like being consumed and reborn all at once. Her body convulsed. Healers shouted. Kaelin's hands found hers, gripping tight, anchoring her, and then something inside her broke open. Magic exploded outward, silver light filling the room. Ilara felt her power expanding, transforming, becoming something she'd never imagined. The incomplete bond wasn't deteriorating anymore. It was completing itself, fueled by their mutual choice and absolute commitment. But something was wrong. The transformation was happening too fast, burning through her body faster than it could adapt. She could feel herself coming apart at the seams, her human form unable to contain the power flooding through her. Kaelin, she choked out. Something's wrong. I know. I can feel it. His voice was steady, calm, even as his hands shook. Vera, what's happening? The bond is completing, but her body can't handle the influx of alpha power. She's not strong enough, not yet. Vera's voice turned sharp. We need to slow this down before it kills her. How? I don't know. The silver light grew brighter, more intense. Ilara felt her consciousness fragmenting, felt herself being pulled in too many directions at once. Through it all, the bond held, the only solid thing in a universe coming undone. And then Kaelin was there, his presence wrapping around her through their connection, not pulling her back, but holding her together, giving her something to anchor to while the transformation raged. I've got you, he said. I'm not letting go. Ilara held on to those words like a lifeline, held on to him, onto the bond, onto the fierce certainty that they would survive this or die trying. The power peaked, crested, then finally, slowly, began to settle. When Ilara opened her eyes, the world looked different, sharper, brighter. She could see the individual threads of magic woven through the room, could feel the life force of every person present, could sense the bond between her and Kaelin like a physical thing, golden and unbreakable. What happened to me? Her voice came out different, stronger, resonant with power. Vera was staring at her with something between awe and terror. You completed the transformation. The bond stabilized and elevated you. She shook her head slowly. You're not Omega anymore, Ilara. You're an Alpha, a queen. Ilara sat up, moving with a strength she'd never possessed. Her body felt different, solid, powerful, alive in ways that had nothing to do with just surviving. Kaelin was watching her with an expression she couldn't name. How do you feel? Different. Ilara flexed her fingers, watching silver light dance across her skin. Everything is different. Before anyone could respond, Alarms sounded throughout the fortress. Theron burst into the room, his face grim. "We've got a problem." Corvin showed up at the gates with 3 allied packs. "He's demanding we turn over Alara to face justice for attempted regicide." "He can't be serious," Vera said. "He's got 50 warriors, and enough political leverage to make this a real siege if we refuse." Theron looked at Kaelin. "Orders?" Kaelin stood, his whole posture shifting into something dangerous. "Tell him if he wants her, he can come take her himself." "Kaelin, wait!" Alara grabbed his arm. Through the bond she could feel his fury, could feel him preparing for war. "We can't fight 3 packs. Your people will die." "Then what do you suggest?" Alara looked at him, then at Vera, then at the magic still dancing across her hands. An idea formed. Reckless, dangerous, exactly the kind of thing that had gotten her into this mess in the first place. "Let me face him," she said. "Let me prove the charges are false." "That's insane," Theron said. "He'll kill you the moment you step outside these walls." "Maybe." Alara stood, testing her new strength. "Or maybe he'll finally get to see what happens when you push someone too far." Kaelin grabbed her shoulders, turning her to face him. "You just completed a transformation that should have killed you. Your body is still adapting. You're in no condition to—" "I'm in perfect condition." Alara met his eyes, letting him see the truth through their bond. "I can feel it, Kaelin. This power, it's not just yours, it's mine too. Something I earned, something I chose." She covered his hands with her own. "Let me finish what I started in that clearing. Let me prove I'm not someone to be controlled or manipulated or threatened." He searched her face for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. "Together," he said. "We face him together." "Together," Alara agreed. They walked to the gates side by side, the new bond between them singing with shared purpose. Behind them, Kaelin's warriors gathered, ready for whatever came next. The gates opened. Corvin stood there with an army at his back, his smile sharp with anticipated victory. Then he saw Alara, upright, powerful, radiating authority she'd never possessed before, and his smile faltered. "Alara Vance," he called out. "You're charged with attempted regicide, use of forbidden magic, and conspiracy against the crown. Surrender yourself for judgment." Alara stepped forward, feeling the new power coiling beneath her skin. "I saved his life, Corvan. We both know it. Whatever evidence you fabricated, whatever lies you told, they end now." "You poisoned him," Corvin insisted, but his voice lacked conviction. "Then let me prove it." Alara raised her hands, silver light blooming across her palms. "Let me show everyone here exactly what I did in that clearing." Before Corvin could respond, she released her power. The magic poured out of her, but this time it was controlled, focused. She wove it into the air between them, creating images. Memories pulled from the bond, showing the truth of what had happened. The dying stranger, the poison, the desperate healing that had saved them both. Every warrior, every alpha, every witness saw it. Saw her saving him, saw the bond forming from desperation and compatibility and absolute trust. Saw everything Corvin had tried to hide. The images faded. Silence pressed down on the gathered packs. Corvin's face had gone white. "Lies, illusions. She's manipulating." "Enough." The word came from one of the other pack leaders, a scarred woman with gray in her hair. "We've all seen bond memories before. Those can't be faked." "She's a witch," Corvin tried. "She's using dark magic to—" "She's a healer," Kaelin interrupted. His voice carried across the assembled warriors, absolute and commanding. "She's my bondmate, my equal. And if you want to take her, Corvan, you'll have to go through me first." He moved to stand beside Alara, their shoulders touching. Through the bond, she felt his absolute conviction, his willingness to burn the world down if that's what it took to protect her. The other pack leaders exchanged glances. The scarred woman stepped forward, her expression thoughtful. "The evidence against her was fabricated," she said. Not a question. "You planted it, Corvan, to gain leverage over the Alpha King." "I did what was necessary. You committed treason." Another pack leader, this one young with sharp eyes. "Against not just Kaelin, but against the stability of all our territories." Corvan looked around at his allies, watching them turn against him one by one. "You can't. This isn't—" "It's over," Alara said quietly. "You lost." For a moment, Corvin just stood there, his empire crumbling around him. Then his hand dropped to his weapon. "If I can't control you," he said, then nobody can. He moved with alpha speed, closing the distance between them in a heartbeat. His knife came up, aimed for Alara's heart. She didn't move, didn't flinch. The blade stopped an inch from her chest, caught by Kalen's hand. Blood dripped from his palm where the edge cut deep, but his grip never wavered. Bad choice, Kalen said softly. Then he moved. It was over in seconds. Kalen disarmed Korvan with brutal efficiency, then struck him down with a single blow that echoed across the courtyard. Korvan hit the ground hard and didn't get up. Kalen stood over him, his bloody hand still gripping the knife. You came to my territory, threatened my mate, tried to kill her in front of witnesses. His voice carried to every person present. By the laws that govern all our packs, I claim right of execution. No one argued. No one even moved. Kalen raised the knife. Wait! Alara's voice cut through the moment. She moved to his side, placing her hand over his. Let him live. Kalen looked at her, confusion and fury warring in his expression. After everything he did, let him live, Alara repeated. Let him go back to his territory in disgrace. Let everyone see what happens when you try to control people through fear and manipulation. She looked down at Korvan, bleeding and beaten. Death would be mercy. This way, he has to live with his failure. Kalen studied her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he lowered the knife. Get him out of my sight, he said to the other pack leaders. And if he ever sets foot in my territory again, I won't be so merciful. Warriors moved forward, dragging Korvan away. The gathered packs began to disperse, murmuring among themselves. Alara turned to Kalen, suddenly aware of how close they were standing, how the bond between them was singing with triumph and relief and something fiercer. You're bleeding, she said, taking his injured hand in hers. It's nothing. It's not nothing. Silver light flickered across her palms as she called on her power. The healing came easier now, natural as breathing. She watched the wound close, the skin knitting back together under her touch. When she looked up, Kalen was watching her with an expression that stole her breath. You could have let me kill him, he said quietly, after everything he did to you. I know. Alara released his hand, even though part of her wanted to keep holding it forever. But I didn't save your life just so you could start a war over me. Besides, a small smile tugged at her lips. Mercy is its own kind of power. Where did you learn that? From you. She met his eyes. You could have killed him a dozen times since this started. You chose not to. That takes more strength than any execution. Kalen's hand came up to cup her face, his thumb brushing across her cheekbone in a gesture that was becoming familiar. What am I going to do with you, Alara Vance? Keep me, she said. If you want. Oh, I want. His voice dropped, intimate and intense. The question is whether you understand what that means. Being my queen, my equal, my... He didn't finish. Couldn't, because Alara had pulled him down and kissed him. The bond between them exploded with light and heat and absolute rightness. This was what had been missing, what the magic had been screaming for, not just commitment or choice, but this, connection, want. The conscious decision to be together not because fate demanded it, but because they chose it. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Alara could feel the bond settling into place, complete, unbreakable, theirs. So that's a yes? Kalen asked, slightly breathless. Alara laughed, the sound bright and free. That's a yes. Around them, Kalen's warriors were cheering. Vera was grinning like she'd won a bet. Even Theron looked pleased, which for him meant he wasn't actively scowling. And for the first time since that night in the clearing, Alara let herself believe they might actually survive this. Then pain lanced through her chest, sharp, vicious, wrong. She gasped, her hands flying to her ribs. The bond that had felt so solid seconds ago was fracturing, black lines spreading through the golden light like poison. Alara? Kalen caught her as her legs gave out. What's happening? I don't... She couldn't breathe. The bond... Something's wrong. Vera was there instantly, her hands on Alara's wrist, checking pulse and temperature. Her face went white. No, this isn't possible. What? Kalen demanded. She's been poisoned. Vera's voice shook. Shadowbane. The same thing that almost killed you. Someone got to her and now it's spreading through the bond, attacking you both. Alara felt it then, the corruption spreading through her veins, turning her new power against itself. Through the bond, she could feel it reaching for Kaelin too, trying to consume them both the way it had almost consumed him in that clearing. How? Kaelin's voice was raw. How did someone... Korvan. The word came out choked. Before he tried to stab me. He must have... the knife. The blade had been poisoned, a backup plan, in case everything else failed, and now that poison was killing them both. Alara looked up at Kaelin, seeing her own terror reflected in his eyes. They'd survived assassination attempts and incomplete bonds and political manipulation. But Shadowbane didn't care about survival or love or any of the choices they'd made. It only cared about death. And it was winning. Get her inside, Vira's voice cut through the chaos. Now! Kaelin lifted Alara into his arms, moving fast despite the poison already working through his own system. She could feel it through the bond. The same black corruption that was eating her alive was reaching for him, spreading through their connection like fire through dry wood. They made it back into the fortress, warriors scrambling to clear a path. Healers were already waiting in the chamber they'd left minutes ago, their faces tight with fear. Lay her down here, Vira directed. Her hands were steady even as her voice shook. We need to see how far it spread. Kaelin set Alara on the bed with infinite care, then swayed. Theron caught him before he could fall. You too, stubborn bastard, Theron said, forcing him into a chair. You're poisoned same as her. I'm fine. You're turning gray and you can barely stand. Theron pushed him down with more force than necessary. Sit. Let them work. Vira moved between them, checking pulses, examining the black veins spreading beneath their skin. Her expression grew grimmer with each passing second. It's worse than last time, she said finally. The poison is using the bond as a highway, attacking both of you simultaneously. And because the bond is complete now... She stopped, her jaw tight. Say it, Kaelin demanded. If one of you dies, the bond will kill the other within minutes. Vira met his eyes. You're completely connected, which means the Shadowbane only has to succeed with one of you to kill you both. Silence crashed down on the room. Alara felt the poison burning through her veins, felt it reaching for her heart. Through the bond, she could feel Kaelin fighting the same battle, trying to hold on, trying to give the healers time to find a solution. But there was no solution to Shadowbane poisoning. Not twice. Not when it was working through a mate bond. Break it, Alara said. Her voice came out weak, thready. The bond. Break it now while there's still time. No. Kaelin's answer was immediate, absolute. Kaelin, listen to me. I said no. He tried to stand, but Theron held him down. We completed it. We chose each other. I'm not undoing that just because we're both going to die? Alara's laugh came out bitter. That seems like a pretty good reason. Breaking a complete mate bond would destroy you both anyway, Vira said quietly. Even if you survived the separation, you'd never be whole again, never be able to bond with anyone else. Never... So we're dead either way, Alara finished. I didn't say that. Everyone turned to look at Vira. She was staring at Alara with an expression caught between hope and terror. When Kaelin was poisoned the first time, you burned the Shadowbane out of him using your healing magic. It shouldn't have worked. Shadowbane is specifically designed to resist magical intervention, but you did it anyway. I had his strength backing me, Alara said. The bond was forming. We fought it together. Exactly. Vira moved closer, her eyes intense. You fought it together. Your healing magic combined with his alpha strength created something powerful enough to overcome Shadowbane's defenses. What if you could do it again? She's too weak, one of the other healers protested. She just completed a transformation that should have killed her. Her power reserves are depleted. Her body is still adapting. She's also an alpha queen now, Vira interrupted, with power she didn't have before. Power that came from Kaelin, from the bond, from choosing each other. She looked between them. What if that's enough? Kaelin pushed Theron aside and stood, moving to the bed despite his obvious weakness. He took Alara's hand, his grip warm despite the poison burning through them both. Can you do it? He asked quietly. Can you fight this thing again? Alara looked at their joined hands, at the black veins spreading up both their arms. She felt the poison working its way toward her heart, felt her new power struggling to hold it back. I don't know, she admitted. Last time I had surprise on my side. The Shadowbane didn't know what I was, didn't know how to defend against healing magic channeled through a forming bond. She met his eyes. This time it knows. It's adapted. And we're both infected, which means I'd have to heal us simultaneously while the poison fights back twice as hard. So the odds are bad. The odds are terrible. Kaylin's smile was sharp as broken glass. Good. I hate easy fights. Despite everything, the poison, the pain, the very real possibility they were both about to die, Alara laughed. You're insane. You saved my life by running toward danger when anyone sensible would have run away. Mom. His thumb traced circles on the back of her hand. We're both insane, might as well embrace it. If we do this, Alara said slowly, and it doesn't work, if I burn through whatever power I have left and we both die anyway, then we die knowing we tried. Kaylin leaned forward, his forehead resting against hers. Together, the way we chose. Through the bond, Alara felt his absolute certainty. No fear, no regret, just the fierce determination to fight until there was nothing left to fight with. It should have terrified her, should have made her want to find another way, any other way. Instead, it filled her with a reckless courage she'd never known she possessed. Okay, she said, let's try. Vera started issuing orders immediately, clearing the room of unnecessary people, setting up containment wards in case the magic went wrong. The remaining healers moved into position, ready to intervene if needed. Kaylin settled onto the bed beside Alara, close enough that she could feel his warmth, his strength, his presence anchoring her. How do we start? He asked. Same way as last time. Alara closed her eyes, reaching for that well of power inside her. It felt different now, bigger, deeper, transformed by the completed bond. I use my healing magic to attack the poison. You feed me your strength through the bond. We trap it, contain it, burn it away. Except this time we're both infected, Kaylin said, which means the poison can attack us from inside while we're trying to heal. Yeah, that's the problem. What if we don't try to heal both of us at once? Vera spoke up from the edge of the containment circle. What if you focus on Kaylin first, clear him completely, then use his strength to heal yourself? Alara shook her head. The bond won't let me prioritize him. It'll try to distribute the healing equally, which means we'll both get half measures and neither of us will survive. Then we need to trick it, Kaylin said slowly. Make the bond think we're healing simultaneously while actually focusing on one at a time. How? His gold eyes held hers, intense and completely serious. You remember what happened when the incomplete bond was trying to destroy you? How I held you together through our connection, gave you something to anchor to? Yes. What if I do the opposite now? What if I use the bond to pull the poison out of you and into me, concentrate it all in one place? He kept talking before she could protest. Then you only have to fight it once in one body, instead of battling it in both of us simultaneously. That would kill you, Alara said flatly. Double the Shadowbane in your system? You'd be dead in minutes. Or it would give you a clear target. Kaylin's grip on her hand tightened. Think about it. Right now, the poison is spread between us, adapting to defend itself from two different angles. If it's all in me, you can hit it with everything you've got. No divided attention, no trying to fight on two fronts. And when you die from the concentrated poison, the bond kills me anyway. Alara pulled her hand free, anger cutting through the fear. That's not a plan. That's suicide. It's a chance. He reached for her again, catching her face between his palms. It's better than lying here watching the poison kill us both slowly. There has to be another way. There isn't. His voice was gentle, final. We both know it, Alara. This is the only option that might work. She wanted to argue, wanted to find some flaw in his logic, some alternative they hadn't considered. But the poison was spreading faster now, black veins crawling across her chest, reaching for her heart. Through the bond, she could feel the same thing happening to Kaylin. They were running out of time. I hate this, Alara whispered. I know. Kaylin's thumbs brushed across her cheekbones, the gesture achingly tender. But I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Could she? Trust him to sacrifice himself, to gamble his life on her ability to heal fast enough, strong enough? She thought about the clearing where they'd met, about the choice she'd made to help a dying stranger, about every choice since then, defying pack law, using forbidden magic, standing against Corvan, choosing to complete a bond that should have killed them both. None of it had been safe. None of it had been smart, but all of it had been worth it. "I trust you," Alara said. Relief flooded Kalen's face. He kissed her, quick and fierce and desperate, then pulled back. "Vera, how do we do this?" The older woman's expression was grave. "You'll need to actively pull the poison through the bond. It won't come willingly. You'll have to use your alpha strength to overpower it, force it to consolidate in your system." "And that will definitely kill him," one of the healers said. "Your Majesty, with respect, this is—" "Going to work," Kalen interrupted. He looked at Alara. "Ready?" "No, not even close." "Ready," she lied. Kalen took both her hands in his, their fingers interlacing. The bond between them pulsed, golden light fighting against black corruption. "On my mark," he said. 3, 2. He didn't wait for one. Power slammed through the bond like a tidal wave. Alara gasped as she felt Kalen's strength wrapping around the poison in her veins, felt him pulling it toward himself with brutal force. The Shadowbane fought back, trying to spread, trying to defend its position. Kalen pulled harder. The pain in Alara's chest eased by a fraction as some of the poison left her system. Through the bond, she felt it entering Kalen, felt the black corruption doubling in his blood. His face went white. Sweat beaded on his forehead, but he didn't stop pulling. "Kalen!" Alara tried to pull her hands back, tried to stop him before it killed him. His grip tightened, holding her in place. "Not yet. Just a little more." He pulled again, and this time Alara felt her system clear almost completely. The poison was still there, a trace amount clinging to her cells, but the vast majority of it was gone. All of it now concentrated in Kalen. Black veins covered his arms, his neck spreading across his face. His breathing turned labored, his whole body shaking with the effort of containing that much corruption. "Now," he gasped. "Do it now." Alara didn't hesitate. She called on every scrap of power she possessed, her healing magic, her new alpha strength, the energy flowing through the bond, and poured it into Kalen. Silver light exploded from her hands where they gripped his. She felt her magic rushing into him, searching for the poison, finding it concentrated in his blood like thick black oil. The Shadowbane recognized her immediately. It had adapted since their last fight, had learned her patterns, her methods. It threw up defenses, tried to scatter again, tried to find somewhere to hide in Kalen's body. But there was nowhere to go. Kalen had corralled it, trapped it, forced it into a space where Alara's magic could reach every part of it at once. She struck. Her healing power wrapped around the poison like silver chains, binding it, containing it. The Shadowbane fought back viciously, trying to consume her magic the way it consumed life force. But this time Alara had something she hadn't had before. Alpha strength, Queen's power, the combined might of a completed mate bond. She used all of it. The silver light intensified, burning bright enough that Vera and the healers had to shield their eyes. Alara felt the poison beginning to fracture, felt her magic finding the weak points in its structure. Through the bond, she could feel Kalen holding on by pure willpower, keeping the poison concentrated even as it tried to kill him. "Almost there," Alara said through gritted teeth. "Just hold on." The Shadowbane made a desperate gambit. Instead of fighting Alara's magic directly, it turned on Kalen, trying to kill him fast enough that the bond would take her too before she could finish healing him. Black corruption surged toward his heart. "No!" Alara slammed more power through the bond, putting herself between the poison and Kalen's life. Her magic wrapped around his heart, shielding it, holding the Shadowbane back. But she couldn't do both. Couldn't shield him and destroy the poison simultaneously. She needed help. "Vera!" Alara's voice cracked with strain. "I need another healer. Someone to help me hold the defenses while I attack." "I'm not strong enough," Vera said. "None of us are. Shadowbane is too powerful." "Then find me someone who is." Silence. Helpless, terrible silence. And then a voice spoke from the doorway. "I'll do it." Everyone turned. Thessa stood there. The elder from Silverwood Pack, the one who'd questioned Alara's magic, who'd examined her with clinical suspicion. She looked older now, tired, but her eyes were clear and determined. "I trained as a healer before I became an advisor," Thessa said. moving into the room. I'm strong enough to help hold defenses, if you'll trust me. Alara didn't have time to question motivations or doubt sincerity. Kaelin was dying, the poison was winning, and she needed help. Get over here, she said. Thessa moved to the opposite side of the bed, placing her hands over Kaelin's heart. Her magic, different from Alara's, more structured and controlled, flowed into him, reinforcing the shields around his vital organs. I've got the defenses, Thessa said. Do what you need to do. Alara turned all her focus back to the poison. With Thessa holding the shields, she could go on the offensive completely. She gathered her magic, shaped it into something sharp and precise, and drove it into the heart of the Shadowbane corruption. The poison screamed, not audibly, but through magic and bond, and the space between life and death. It thrashed, fought, tried to escape the trap they'd created. Alara held it fast and burned. Silver fire consumed the poison from the inside out. She felt it dying by degrees, felt its grip on Kaelin's life weakening. The black veins on his skin began to fade, the corruption dissolving under her relentless assault. But it wasn't fast enough. Kaelin's heartbeat was slowing, his breathing turning shallow. The poison had done too much damage, had pushed him too close to the edge. Even with it dying, his body was shutting down. He's not going to make it, one of the healers said quietly. Even if you destroy the poison completely, the damage— Shut up, Alara snapped. I'm not done. She reached deeper, pulling on reserves she didn't know she had. The bond between them flared white-hot, and she felt something shift. Not just her magic, but his strength flowing back to her, creating a circuit, a feedback loop of power. They were healing each other. Her magic destroyed the poison in his body. His strength fed her magic, keeping her from burning out. Round and round, faster and faster, building towards something that felt like critical mass. The last of the Shadowbane died in a flash of silver light. Alara collapsed forward onto Kaelin's chest, completely drained. Thessa caught her before she could slide off the bed, her strong hands steadying. Is he— Alara couldn't finish the question. Vera pushed forward, checking Kaelin's pulse, his breathing, the color returning to his skin. Her expression shifted from tense to cautiously hopeful. He's alive, she said. Weak, but alive. The poison is gone, completely gone. I don't know how you did it, but we did it together, Alara said. She could barely keep her eyes open, but through the bond she felt Kaelin's heartbeat, steady and strong, matching her own rhythm. Like everything else. Thessa helped ease her down beside Kaelin, then stepped back. Her expression was complex. Shame, respect, something that might have been regret. I owe you an apology, the older woman said quietly. I questioned your magic, your motives, your worthiness to stand beside him. I was wrong. You were protecting your interests, Alara said. I understand that. No. Thessa shook her head. I was afraid. Afraid of change, of power I didn't understand, of losing what little influence I had. She looked at Kaelin's sleeping face, then back to Alara. He chose well. Better than any political match could have given him. Why did you help us? Alara asked. After everything, why come here? Because Korvan went too far. Thessa's jaw tightened. I've spent my life navigating pack politics, making calculated moves, choosing sides based on advantage. But poisoning an Alpha King and his bondmate? That's not politics, that's treason, and I won't be part of it. She moved toward the door, then paused. When you're recovered, come to Silverwood. Not as enemies, but as allies. Help us clean out the corruption Corvin left behind. Then she was gone, leaving Alara alone with Kaelin and the healers and the slow, settling certainty that they'd actually survived. Vera moved closer, checking Alara's vitals with practiced efficiency. You need rest, real rest, not just collapsing from exhaustion. Your body has been through 3 impossible transformations in as many days. I'm fine. You're not fine. You're barely conscious. Vera's expression softened slightly. But you will be. You both will be. She ushered the other healers out, leaving just Alara and Kaelin in the quiet room. The bond between them hummed peacefully now, no longer fighting poison or incomplete magic, just present, alive, right. Alara curled against Kaelin's side, fitting herself into the curve of his body. His arm came around her automatically, even in sleep, holding her close. She should stay awake. Should keep watch for more threats, more attacks, more schemes from enemies they hadn't even identified yet. But exhaustion pulled at her like a tide, and the bond sang softly of safety, of trust, of rest earned. Alara closed her eyes and let herself sleep. She woke to sunlight streaming through windows and the smell of food. For a disoriented moment, she didn't know where she was. Then the bond pulsed, warm and solid and very much alive, and memory came flooding back. Easy. Kaylin's voice, rough with sleep but steady. You're safe. Alara turned to find him propped up against pillows, looking exhausted but healthy. The black veins were gone from his skin, the gray pallor replaced by normal color. He was eating bread and meat and something that looked like stew, with the single-minded focus of someone who'd been starving. How long was I out? Alara asked. 14 hours. He offered her bread. Eat. Vera says you need to rebuild your strength. Alara took the food, her stomach reminding her she hadn't eaten since before the confrontation with Corvin. The bread was fresh, still warm, and she devoured half of it before managing to slow down. We're alive, she said. Statement, not question. We're alive. Kaylin set his plate aside, his attention focusing completely on her. You saved us. Again. I'm starting to see a pattern. You pulled the poison into yourself knowing it would probably kill you, Alara countered. That seems pretty heroic too. That was strategy. That was insane. His smile was brief but genuine. We've established we're both insane, remember? Alara laughed despite herself. Fair point. They ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Then Kaylin spoke again, his voice more serious. Thessa came by this morning, before you woke up. To apologize again? To swear loyalty. He watched Alara's reaction carefully. She brought 3 other pack leaders with her. They all want to formally acknowledge you as Alpha Queen, establish alliances, pledge their support. Alara set down her bread, her appetite suddenly gone. Because I'm bonded to you. Because you defeated Shadowbane twice, stood against corruption in your own pack, and proved you have the strength to rule. Kaylin reached for her hand. They're not pledging to me through you, Alara. They're pledging to you directly, as an equal power. I don't know how to be a queen. Neither did I when I became king. His thumb traced familiar circles on her skin. We'll figure it out, together. The word had become their anchor, together. Through poison and bonds and impossible choices, they'd faced everything together. Alara looked at him, really looked at him, saw not just the Alpha King, the powerful warrior, the political force, but the man who'd promised to come back for her, who'd defended her against his own interests, who'd literally pulled poison into himself to give her a chance to save them both. I love you, she said. The words came out simple, honest, inevitable. Kaylin went very still. Then, slowly, his expression transformed into something that stole her breath. Say that again, he said quietly. I love you. Alara's voice was stronger this time. Not because of the bond, not because fate threw us together. I love you because you're stubborn and fierce and you refuse to give up even when you should. Because you chose me when you had every reason not to. Because, he kissed her, cutting off the words. It was different from the kiss in the courtyard, less desperate, more certain, a promise instead of a claim. When they finally broke apart, Kaylin rested his forehead against hers. I love you too, he said. I think I have since you told me to shut up in that clearing while you were saving my life. Alara laughed, the sound bright and free. That was the moment? You were terrified and exhausted and still brave enough to snap at a dying Alpha. His hands cupped her face. How could I not fall for that? A knock at the door interrupted them. Go away, Kaylin called without looking. Can't. Theron's voice came through the wood. We've got visitors. Important ones. Kaylin sighed, pressing one more quick kiss to Alara's lips before pulling back. Enter. Theron stepped in, followed by Vera. Both of them looked tense. The Northern Council is here, Vera said without preamble. All 12 members. They're demanding an audience with both of you. The Northern Council, the group of pack leaders who theoretically govern the territories, who'd put Kylan in power and could theoretically remove him if enough of them agreed he was unfit. "What do they want?" Kaelin asked. "To see if the rumors are true." Theron's expression was grim. "About you bonding to an Omega-born nobody with forbidden magic. About Corvin's accusations. About whether you're compromised or strengthened by the bond. In other words," Alara said, "they're here to judge whether I'm worthy of being your queen." Vera nodded. "If they decide you're not, if they think the bond makes Kaelin weak or vulnerable, they can call for dissolution. Force you to break the bond or face removal from power." Silence fell heavy in the room. Alara felt anger rising in her chest, hot and fierce. She'd saved Kaelin's life twice, had fought poison and politics and her own pack's corruption. And now she had to prove herself to a council of alphas who'd probably never risked anything more dangerous than hurt pride. "When do they want to meet?" Kaelin asked. "Within the hour." Theron looked between them. "You don't have to do this. We can refuse the audience. Tell them to—" "No!" Alara stood, testing her strength. Her body ached, but it held. "We'll meet them. Let them judge. Let them see exactly what they're dealing with." Kaelin rose beside her, his hand finding hers. "Together?" "Together," Alara confirmed. An hour later, they stood in the fortress's great hall facing 12 pack leaders who represented the full power of the Northern Territories. Alara had dressed in borrowed clothes, simple but well-made, nothing that screamed wealth or status. Let them see her as she was, not dressed up to play a role. Kaelin stood beside her in full formal regalia, every inch the Alpha King. But his hand never left hers, their fingers interlaced, the bond between them visible to anyone with the sense to feel it. The council sat in judgment, their faces ranging from curious to hostile to carefully neutral. Kaelin Drake, the head counselor began, an older alpha named Marcus with silver in his beard and cold calculation in his eyes. "You stand before us bonded to a woman of Omega bloodline, accused by a pack leader of using forbidden magic and attempted regicide. Explain yourself." "There's nothing to explain," Kaelin's voice carried across the hall. "Alara Vance saved my life when I was poisoned with Shadowbane. She used healing magic, not forbidden, just rare, to burn the poison from my blood. In doing so, we formed a mate bond that we later chose to complete." "Chose," Marcus repeated, "or were forced by the bond's deterioration?" "Chose," Alara said, stepping forward. "I could have let him die. Could have walked away. Could have broken the incomplete bond and saved myself. I chose him, freely, completely." Murmurs rippled through the council. "And the accusations of poison?" another counselor asked. "Of trapping the king through manufactured crisis? Fabricated by Corvin Greaves to gain political leverage," Kaelin said. "We have witnesses, bond memories, and his own confession when he attempted to kill us both with poisoned blade." "Where is Corvan now?" Marcus asked. "Alive and disgraced." Kaelin's smile was sharp. "Which was Alara's decision, not mine. I would have executed him. She chose mercy." More murmurs. This time they sounded more thoughtful than hostile. Marcus studied them both for a long moment. "You understand our concern. An Alpha King bonded to a woman with no political connections, no established pack standing, no training in leadership." "I understand you're afraid," Alara interrupted. The hall went silent. "Afraid of change," Alara continued, meeting Marcus's eyes without flinching. "Afraid of power you don't control. Afraid that a woman who started with nothing might actually be strong enough to stand beside your king and remake the rules you've built your lives on." "That's," Marcus started. "True," Alara finished. "You're afraid because I didn't come up through your system, didn't play your political games, didn't earn your approval before daring to matter. And now you're looking for reasons to tear down what we've built because it threatens the order you depend on." Kaelin squeezed her hand, proud and fierce through the bond. "But here's what you're missing," Alara said. "I don't need your approval to be worthy of this bond. I don't need your permission to stand beside him. I fought for this. Fought poison and prejudice and people who wanted me dead or controlled. I earned this power through choices that should have killed me, but didn't." She let silver light flicker across her free hand, just enough to make her point. "So judge me if you want. Declare me unworthy if that makes you feel better. But know this, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not breaking this bond, and if you try to force it, You'll find out exactly how strong forbidden magic can be when it's protecting something worth fighting for. The silence that followed was absolute. Then Marcus did something unexpected. He smiled. I was hoping you'd say something like that, he said, rising from his seat. Because we don't need another political marriage designed to maintain the status quo. We need a queen with the spine to challenge it. He moved forward, dropping to one knee in front of them. I recognize Alara Vance as Alpha Queen of the Northern Territories. As equal to Kaelin Drake in power and standing. As bonded mate and rightful ruler. One by one, the other counselors followed. 11 pack leaders kneeling before her, acknowledging her authority, accepting her as their queen. Alara stood frozen, overwhelmed by the sight. Through the bond, she felt Kaelin's satisfaction, his pride, his absolute certainty that this was right. Rise, he said to the council, and know that you've made the right choice. Together, we're going to remake these territories into something stronger than they've ever been. The counselors rose, moving forward to offer formal greetings and oaths of loyalty. Alara accepted them with as much grace as she could manage, still half convinced this was a dream. When the last of them had filed out, leaving just her and Kaelin and Theron standing guard, she finally let herself breathe. That actually happened, she said. That actually happened, Kaelin confirmed. They kneeled, to me, the Omega Nobody from Silverwood Pack. They kneeled to their queen. He turned her to face him, his hands on her shoulders. And this is just the beginning. We've got territories to unite, corruption to clean out, and about 100 political nightmares waiting to test us. Sounds terrible, Alara said. Sounds like exactly the kind of challenge we're good at. His smile turned wicked. Think you're ready? Alara thought about the girl who'd run from the claiming ceremony, who'd saved a dying stranger, who'd fought poison and politics and impossible odds. That girl was gone. In her place stood a queen. I'm ready, Alara said. Let's get started. The first real test came 3 weeks later on a gray morning when scouts reported movement in the Eastern Territories. Alara stood on the fortress battlements, watching storm clouds gather over distant mountains. The bond hummed peacefully in her chest. Kaelin was in the war room below, strategizing with his commanders. She could feel his focus, his determination, the weight of responsibility he carried. She understood that weight now, wore it herself. Your Majesty. Theron climbed the stone steps, his scarred face serious. We've got confirmation. It's Corvan. He's gathered what's left of his loyalists, maybe 30 warriors, and they're moving toward Silverwood territory. To reclaim his pack, Alara said. Not a question. To burn it down. Theron joined her at the wall, his gaze following hers toward the horizon. According to our intelligence, he's not trying to retake leadership. He's planning to destroy everything he can't control. The pack house, the grain stores, the wells. Leave Silverwood in ruins as punishment for turning against him. Fury rose in Alara's chest, hot and immediate. Silverwood had been her prison, yes, but it had also been home. The people there had suffered under Corvan's rule same as she had. They didn't deserve to be destroyed because their leader had finally been held accountable. Where's Kaelin? She asked. Preparing a response team. He'll want to ride out within the hour, intercept Corvan before— No! Alara turned from the battlements, her decision made. I'm going. Alone. Theron's eye widened. Your Majesty, with respect, that's my territory to defend. Alara's voice carried the authority she'd been learning to wield. Silverwood might have rejected me, but those people are still mine to protect. And Corvan? Her jaw tightened. Corvan is my unfinished business. Kaelin won't like this. Hope Kaelin doesn't get a vote. Alara started down the stairs, Theron following. Get me a horse and 10 of your best riders. Fast, light, mobile. We'll move ahead of the main force, get to Silverwood before Corvan does. And when we get there, I'll handle Corvan. You keep his warriors from killing anyone. Theron studied her for a long moment. Then he grinned, fierce and approving. I'll get the horses. Alara made it to the stables before Kaelin found her. He appeared in the doorway like a storm given form, his expression caught between fury and fear. The bond between them was screaming, his alarm mixing with her determination, creating a feedback loop of competing emotions. No, he said flatly. Alara continued saddling her horse. I'm going. Alara, listen to me. I have listened. She turned to face him, meeting his gold eyes without flinching. I've listened to advisors telling me I need more training, to counselors saying I should wait until I'm more established, to you being protective because the bond makes you feel responsible for my safety. She moved closer, her voice softening. But Corvin is my fight. He tried to control me, use me, destroy me, and now he's going after people I grew up with. I'm not hiding behind your warriors while he burns my home. Kaylin's jaw tightened. Through the bond, she felt him fighting his instincts. The alpha need to protect, to control, to keep her safe. You could die, he said quietly. I could. Alara reached up, her hand cupping his face. But I won't. Because I'm stronger than he is now. Stronger than he ever imagined I could be. She let him feel her certainty through the bond. Trust me, please. The war in his expression was painful to watch. Finally, he closed his eyes and let out a long breath. Take 50 warriors, he said. Not 10, 50. And Theron stays with you every second. 30 warriors and Theron can coordinate but not hover. 40 warriors and he stays within shouting distance. Deal. Alara kissed him, quick and fierce. I'll be back before sunset. You better be. His hands caught her waist, holding her close for one more moment. Because if you die saving Silverwood, I'm going to be very angry with you. Noted. She pulled back, swinging up onto her horse. Try not to burn down the fortress while I'm gone. His laugh was rough but genuine. No promises. Alara rode out with 40 warriors, and Theron, moving fast through territories she was still learning to call hers. The bond stretched between her and Kaylin like a golden thread, keeping them connected even as distance grew. They reached Silverwood's borders by midday. The forest was quiet, too quiet. No birds, no wildlife, just the whisper of wind through pine trees. Alara felt her wolf instincts prickling with awareness. Something was wrong. Spread out, she ordered quietly. Watch for ambush. The warriors moved into formation, experienced and disciplined. Theron rode beside her, his hand on his weapon. They found the first body a mile from the village, one of Corvan's loyalists, face down in the dirt, killed by a single strike to the heart. Clean, efficient, professional. That's not our work, Theron said, examining the wound. Someone else got here first. They found 3 more bodies before they reached the village proper. All Corvan's people, all killed the same way. The village came into view, intact, unburned, very much not destroyed. People moved through the streets, going about their business with wary efficiency. And in the center square, surrounded by a dozen armed guards, stood Corvan. He was bound, kneeling, bloodied, but alive. Standing over him, looking deeply satisfied, was Thessa. Alara dismounted, moving through the gathered crowd. People turned to stare, shock, fear, curiosity playing across their faces. Some recognized her. Most didn't. The Omega girl who disappeared on claiming night had returned to something else entirely. Your Majesty. Thessa bowed slightly, respect clear in the gesture. We've been expecting you. What happened here? Alara asked. We caught him. Thessa gestured to Corvan with barely concealed contempt. He tried to sneak in before dawn with his warriors, planning to set fires, destroy supplies, leave us helpless. We were ready. How did you know he was coming? Because we know him. An older man stepped forward, one of the pack's former advisors. We lived under his rule long enough to predict how he thinks. Knew he'd come for revenge rather than accept defeat. Alara looked at the assembled villagers, seeing determination in faces she'd known her whole life. These weren't victims waiting to be saved. They were people who'd taken control of their own defense. You didn't need me, she said quietly. No, Thessa agreed, but we wanted you here anyway, for this. She hauled Corvan to his feet with surprising strength. He looked diminished now, dirty, defeated, stripped of the authority he'd worn like armor. But when his eyes met Alara's, old hatred flared in them. Come to gloat? He spat. The little Omega who got lucky? I came to make sure you couldn't hurt anyone else, Alara said. Looks like Silverwood beat me to it. They'll turn on you too. Corvin's laugh was bitter. You think they'll follow you, accept you as their leader? You're nothing. No bloodline, no standing, no patience for your bullshit, Alara interrupted. She looked at Thessa. What do you want done with him? That's for you to decide, Your Majesty. Thessa's expression was carefully neutral. Silverwood is yours now, has been since you bonded to the Alpha King. We're part of your territories, which means justice is your responsibility. Alara felt the weight of all those eyes on her, judging, measuring, waiting to see what kind of queen she would be. Kaelin would execute him. Swift justice for repeated treason, for attempted murder, for all the damage he'd caused. But Alara remembered her mother's voice, singing songs about mercy and strength, remembered the choice she'd made to let Corvan live the first time. Exile, she said finally. Strip him of rank, territory, and pack standing. Send him into the frontier with nothing but the clothes on his back. If he survives, fine. If not, she shrugged, the wilderness will deliver its own justice. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, some approving, some disappointed, all surprised. Corvin's face twisted with rage. You think exile is mercy? You think... I think, Alara cut him off, that killing you would be easy, quick, a clean end to a messy problem. She moved closer, letting him see the power in her eyes, the strength he'd never imagined she possessed. But exile means living with your failures, means waking up every day knowing you lost everything because you underestimated an Omega girl. That seems like better punishment to me. She turned to the guards. Take him to the border. Release him there. If he ever sets foot in our territories again, kill him on sight. They dragged Corvan away, his curses fading into the distance. Thessa approached, her expression thoughtful. That took courage. Many would have chosen execution. Many aren't trying to prove they're different from him, Alara said. I won't rule through fear and violence. There has to be another way. There does, Thessa gestured toward the pack house, which is why we'd like to discuss the future of Silverwood, if you have time. I have time. They gathered in the Great Hall, the same room where Alara had stood weeks ago, invisible and insignificant. Now she sat at the head of the table, facing pack leaders and advisors who'd once ignored her existence. Silverwood needs new leadership, Thessa began without preamble. Corvin's rule left us fractured, mistrusted by neighboring packs, politically isolated. We need someone who can rebuild those connections. You want me to appoint a new pack leader, Alara said. We want you to be our pack leader. The words came from Mara, who'd been silent until now. You're Silverwood-born, you understand us. And you've got the power to protect us, the connections to restore our standing. Alara stared at her cousin, then at the others gathered around the table. I can't lead Silverwood and serve as Alpha Queen. That's too much territory, too much responsibility. So delegate, Thessa said practically. Appoint trusted people to handle day-to-day operations while you oversee the larger decisions. It's how most territories are managed anyway. And if I refuse? Silence. Heavy and expectant. Then we'll find someone else, Mara said quietly. But it won't be the same. You're one of us, Alara. The only one who's lived at the bottom and climbed to the top. The only one who knows what it's like to be powerless and chose power anyway. Alara looked at the faces around the table, people who'd watched her grow up invisible, who'd ignored her struggles, who'd let Corvin's corruption flourish unchallenged. But they were also people who defended themselves when threatened, who'd captured Corvin without waiting for rescue, who were asking for leadership instead of demanding salvation. I'll do it, she said. On one condition. Name it, Thessa said. No more claiming ceremonies, no more forced matches or breeding contracts or any of that archaic control dressed up as tradition. Alara's voice was firm, absolute. People choose their own partners, their own futures. We build strength through freedom, not coercion. The advisors exchanged glances. Some uncomfortable, some thoughtful, all surprised. That's a significant change, one of them said carefully. It's necessary. Alara met each person's eyes in turn. We can't claim to be better than Corvan while maintaining the systems that gave him power. This ends now. The other packs won't like it, Mara warned. They'll see it as weakness, permissiveness. Then they can try to challenge us and see how weak we are. Alara smiled, sharp and certain. I didn't survive poison in politics just to preserve broken traditions. We're changing things, starting here. Thessa was the first to nod. Agreed. Silverwood follows your lead, Your Majesty. One by one, the others followed. Reluctant for some, enthusiastic for others, but all of them committed. Alara felt something shift inside her, not the bond, but something deeper. The girl who'd run from the claiming ceremony would never have imagined this moment, leading the pack that had rejected her, rewriting the rules that had defined her entire life. "Good," she said. "Then let's get to work." They spent the rest of the afternoon hammering out details. Who would handle what responsibilities, how to rebuild relationships with neighboring territories, which policies needed immediate change. By the time the sun started its descent toward the horizon, Alara's head was spinning with information and her body was exhausted. But the bond in her chest sang with satisfaction. She was making a difference. Real, tangible, lasting change. "Your Majesty." Theron appeared in the doorway, his expression carefully neutral. "The king sent word. He's requesting your immediate return." "Requesting or demanding?" Alara asked. The message said requesting. His tone suggested demanding. Theron's mouth twitched. "He's been pacing the battlement since you left. Vera says she's never seen him this agitated." Alara stood, suppressing a smile. "Then I should probably head back before he decides to come get me himself." The ride back was quieter than the ride out. Her warriors were relaxed now, the threat neutralized, their queen proven capable. Theron rode beside her, silent and watchful. "You handled that well," he said eventually, "with Corvan, with the pack." "I did what felt right." "That's what makes you dangerous." Theron's scarred face was serious. "You don't think in terms of political advantage or strategic positioning. You just do what's right and trust it'll work out. Is that bad?" "No." His smile was brief. "It's exactly what the territories need. Someone who hasn't been corrupted by playing the game too long." They reached the fortress as twilight painted the sky purple and gold. Alara could feel Kalen before she saw him, the bond pulling tight with relief and residual fear. He was waiting in the courtyard, his posture rigid with controlled tension. The moment she dismounted, he closed the distance between them and pulled her into his arms. "Never again," he said into her hair. "You don't ride into danger alone ever again." "I had 40 warriors with me." "Not enough." His grip tightened. "I felt it through the bond, the confrontation with Corvan, the decisions you were making. I wanted to be there." "I know." Alara pulled back enough to see his face. "But I needed to handle it myself, prove I could." "You proved it." Kalen's hands came up to cup her face. "To them, to yourself, to me. You don't need to keep proving it. Don't I?" Alara searched his expression. "Every pack leader in the territories is watching, waiting to see if I'm actually strong enough to stand beside you, or if I'm just the Omega you're protecting out of bond obligation. Every choice I make gets scrutinized, questioned, judged." "Then let them judge." His thumbs brushed across her cheekbones. "You faced down Corvan and chose mercy. You took leadership of Silverwood and started dismantling oppressive traditions. In one afternoon, you did more to change the territories than most rulers accomplish in years." "Kalen, I'm serious." His gold eyes held hers. "You're not just my equal, Alara. In some ways, you're better than me. Stronger because you choose compassion when I'd choose vengeance. Braver because you're still learning this role while I've had years to adapt." His smile turned soft, genuine. "I'm proud of you. Terrified for your safety, but proud." Alara felt tears prickling at the corners of her eyes. She blinked them back, determined not to cry in the middle of the courtyard with half the fortress watching. "I love you," she said instead. "I love you too." Kalen kissed her, soft and sweet and full of promises. "Now come inside. Vera's been cooking something that smells incredible, and I'm starving." They ate in the private quarters, just the two of them, and the comfortable silence of people who didn't need to fill every moment with words. Through the windows, Alara could see the territories spreading out beneath them, forest and mountain and settlements scattered like stars. Her territories now. Her responsibility. The weight of it should have been crushing. Instead, it felt right. "I've been thinking," Kalen said, setting down his fork, "about what comes next." "Next?" "The bonding ceremony." He watched her reaction carefully. "We completed the mate bond, but we never had the formal ceremony, the public claiming, the blood exchange, the official recognition." "We had 12 pack leaders kneel to me," Alara pointed out. "That seems pretty official." "It was emergency recognition, political necessity." Kaylin reached across the table, taking her hand. I want to do this right. Invite every pack, every ally, every person who matters. Show them exactly what you are. Not the Omega I was forced to bond with, but the queen I chose. The partner I wanted. Alara's throat tightened. That's a lot of ceremony for something we've already done. I know. His smile turned wicked. But I want everyone to see you in formal regalia, wearing the crown, standing beside me as absolute equal. I want them to understand that you're not temporary or conditional. You're permanent, mine, ours. Possessive much? Completely. He pulled her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles. So what do you say? Will you let me show you off to the entire territory? Alara pretended to think about it. Will there be food? Mountains of it. Dancing. If you want. A ridiculous dress I'll never wear again? The most ridiculous dress we can find. Then I suppose I can tolerate being shown off. She grinned. When were you thinking? Next full moon? Give us time to prepare, send invitations, make this the kind of ceremony people remember for decades. No pressure, Alara muttered. Kaylin laughed, pulling her up from her chair and into his lap. You faced Shadowbane poisoning twice and survived. I think you can handle a ceremony. The poisoning didn't require me to make small talk with stuffy pack leaders. Fair point. He buried his face in her neck, breathing her in. We'll survive it together. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of preparations. Seamstresses descended on the fortress with fabric samples and sketches. Kaylin's advisors debated guest lists and security protocols. Vera orchestrated food preparation with military precision, and through it all, Alara tried to learn everything she could about being a queen: politics, diplomacy, territory management, conflict resolution. Some days she felt like she was drowning. Others, she felt like she was finally becoming who she was meant to be. The night before the ceremony, Alara stood in her quarters looking at the dress hanging on the wall. It was beautiful, silver and white, intricate embroidery, fitted perfectly to her transformed body. She should have been excited. Instead, she was terrified. Second thoughts? Mara's voice came from the doorway. Alara turned to find her cousin entering with a bottle of wine and 2 cups. Not about Kaylin, never about him. But about everything else? Mara poured wine, handing a cup to Alara. I get it. Tomorrow you stop being Alara who happened to bond with a king and become Alara the Alpha Queen. That's permanent. No going back. What if I'm not ready? The words came out quiet, vulnerable. What if I fail? Then you'll get up and try again. Mara sat on the bed, patting the space beside her. You've been doing that your whole life, Alara. This is just a bigger stage. Alara joined her, sipping wine and staring at the dress. Do you remember the last claiming ceremony, before I ran? I remember you looked like you wanted to be anywhere else. I was so angry. Alara's laugh was bitter. Angry that I had to stand there and be evaluated like livestock. Angry that my whole future would be decided by which alpha decided I was worth claiming. Angry that this was just accepted, normal, the way things were supposed to be. And now you're changing it, Mara said quietly. Silverwood ended the claiming ceremonies because you demanded it. Other packs are watching, questioning their own traditions. You're rewriting the rules just by existing. Or I'm destroying stability and creating chaos. Maybe both. Mara shrugged. Change is messy, but it's also necessary. They sat in comfortable silence, drinking wine and watching moonlight stream through the windows. Thank you, Alara said eventually, for being here, for supporting this even when it's complicated. Your family. Mara's smile was warm. Weird, powerful, slightly terrifying family, but family nonetheless. The ceremony took place at sunset, when the sky burned gold and crimson. They'd set up in the fortress's great courtyard, decorated with flowers and banners representing every pack in the Northern Territories. Hundreds of guests filled the space, pack leaders, warriors, civilians who'd traveled for days to witness history. Alara stood in the preparation chamber, dressed in silver and white, her hair braided with thread of gold, her hands shaking slightly. Breathe, Vera said, adjusting the crown that would mark Alara as queen. It was simpler than she'd expected. Silver worked into a circle, embedded with stones that caught the light. You've survived worse than a ceremony. Have I? Alara's voice came out higher than intended. You've survived Shadowbane. Twice. Vera stepped back, examining her work with critical eyes. You can survive a few hours of ceremony. A knock at the door. Theron's voice. They're ready for you, Your Majesty. Elara took one last look in the mirror. The woman staring back was a stranger, powerful, regal, nothing like the Omega girl who'd run through the forest to escape her fate. She walked to the doors and they opened onto the courtyard. The crowd's murmur died instantly. Every eye turned to her, some curious, some calculating, some openly awed. Elara forced herself to move forward, walking the path between assembled guests toward the platform where Kaelin waited. He looked devastating in formal regalia, black and silver, the crown of the Alpha King catching the dying light. But his eyes were only for her, filled with something that made her breath catch. She reached the platform, took his offered hand, turned to face the assembled crowd with him beside her. Marcus stepped forward to officiate, his voice carrying across the courtyard. We gather to witness the formal bonding of Kaelin Drake, Alpha King of the Northern Territories, and Elara Vance, chosen mate and equal queen. The ceremony proceeded with ancient ritual, the exchange of vows, the binding of hands, the blood oath that sealed their commitment before witnesses. Elara spoke her words clearly, meaning everyone. Then came the moment she'd been dreading. Does anyone here challenge this bond? Marcus's voice rang out. Speak now or be forever bound by this union's recognition. Silence stretched. Elara felt her heart hammering, waiting for someone to object, to declare her unworthy, I challenge. The voice came from the back of the crowd. Everyone turned. A woman pushed through the assembled guests, tall, elegant, radiating power that marked her as Alpha-born. Elara didn't recognize her, but Kaelin's hand tightened on hers. Lyris, he said quietly. Danger threaded through the single word. Lyris reached the platform, her smile sharp. Forgive the interruption, Your Majesty, but I couldn't let this ceremony conclude without ensuring the bond is legitimate. The bond has been tested and proven, Marcus said, multiple times. Against poison and political threats, yes. Lyris's eyes fixed on Elara. But has it been tested against a true Alpha challenge? Can this Omega-born queen actually defend herself, or is she just hiding behind her mate's strength? Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Elara felt Kaelin's fury through the bond, felt him preparing to shut this down. She squeezed his hand once, stepped forward before he could speak. You want to challenge me? Elara asked. Her voice carried clearly across the courtyard. Here? Now? At my bonding ceremony? I want to ensure you're worthy of the crown you're about to accept. Lyris's smile widened. Surely that's reasonable. Reasonable would have been bringing concerns to the council before the ceremony. Elara descended the platform steps, moving to stand toe-to-toe with Lyris. This is political theater designed to undermine my authority. Then prove me wrong. Lyris's eyes gleamed with challenge. Face me. Show everyone here that you're actually strong enough to be queen, not just a girl who got lucky with a mate bond. Elara should have refused, should have let Kaelin handle this, should have relied on ceremony and protocol to shut down the challenge. But she could feel the crowd watching, judging, waiting to see what she would do. Fine, Elara said. But when I win, you kneel, publicly, and you pledge loyalty to me as your queen. And when I win? Lyris asked. You won't. Elara's smile matched Lyris's for sharpness. But if you do, I'll step down. Voluntarily. Let the council choose a more worthy queen. Elara, Kaelin started. This is my choice, Elara said without looking back at him. My challenge to accept or refuse. She felt his reluctance through the bond, his desire to protect her, to end this before it could become dangerous. But underneath that, she felt something else. Trust. Faith that she knew what she was doing. The challenge is accepted, Marcus announced, his voice heavy with resignation. Clear the center. Standard rules. First blood or submission. The crowd moved back, creating a circle. Elara and Lyris faced each other across packed earth. Last chance to back down, Lyris said quietly. I don't actually want to hurt you. Then you should have thought of that before challenging me at my own ceremony. Elara let silver light flicker across her hands. Ready when you are. Lyris attacked. She was fast, alpha fast, closing the distance in a heartbeat. Her fist came up toward Elara's face with enough force to break bone. Elara moved on instinct, the training she'd been absorbing for weeks finally clicking into place. She ducked under the strike, spun, and caught Lyris with a blow to the ribs that sent her stumbling. The crowd gasped. Lyris recovered quickly, her expression shifting from confident to wary. "You've been practicing." "I've been surviving." Alara circled, watching for the next attack. "There's a difference." They clashed again, a flurry of strikes and counters, each testing the other's defenses. Lyris had training and experience, but Alara had something else. Power she'd earned through impossible choices, strength forged in crisis. The fight escalated. Lyris landed a hit that split Alara's lip. Alara retaliated with a strike that left Lyris gasping, blood and sweat and the roar of the watching crowd. Then Lyris made a mistake. She lunged with too much commitment, leaving herself open. Alara caught her wrist, twisted, and sent her crashing to the ground. Before Lyris could recover, Alara was on her, one knee pinning her chest, one hand wrapped in silver light pressed against her throat. "Yield," Alara said. Lyris's eyes blazed with fury and something that might have been respect. "I yield." Alara released her immediately, stepping back and offering a hand up. After a moment's hesitation, Lyris took it. The courtyard erupted in cheers. Marcus stepped forward, his expression caught between shock and approval. "The challenge is satisfied. Lyris of the Western Pack, your oath." Lyris straightened, meeting Alara's eyes. Then slowly, she dropped to one knee. "I pledge my loyalty to Alara Vance, Alpha Queen of the Northern Territories. I acknowledge her strength, her right to rule, and her worthiness to stand beside the Alpha King." "Rise," Alara said quietly, "and next time you have concerns about my authority, bring them to council, not to my bonding ceremony." Lyris rose, a smile tugging at her mouth. "Noted, Your Majesty." Alara returned to the platform, very aware of the blood on her lip and the torn fabric of her ceremonial dress. Kaelin was watching her with an expression that made her insides warm. "Where were we?" she asked. Marcus cleared his throat, fighting his own smile. "The vows have been exchanged, the challenge satisfied. It remains only to crown the queen and seal the bond before witnesses." Kaelin took the crown from its cushion, delicate silver worked with stones that caught the dying light. He held Alara's eyes as he placed it on her head. "I crown you Alara Vance, Alpha Queen, my equal in all things, my partner in ruling these territories." His voice carried across the silent courtyard. "From this day forward, your word is law. Your strength is our shield. Your wisdom guides us all." He took her hand, his thumb brushing across her knuckles. "And my heart is yours," he added quietly, "just for her. Always." Alara felt tears prickling at her eyes. "Always," she echoed. Marcus raised his hands. "The bond is sealed. The queen is crowned. Let all who witness this know Kaelin Drakey and Alara Vance rule as one, united in power and purpose." The crowd roared approval, and Alara, standing on that platform with Kaelin's hand in hers and a crown on her head, finally let herself believe it was real. She was a queen, not because of bloodline or politics or lucky accident, but because she'd chosen it, fought for it, earned it through impossible choices and refusing to break. The celebration lasted long into the night, food and music and dancing beneath stars that seemed brighter than usual. Alara made her way through the crowd, accepting congratulations and pledges of loyalty, feeling the weight of the crown and the lightness of finally belonging. Later, much later, she and Kaelin escaped to the battlements, seeking quiet away from the celebration. "You know what the best part of tonight was?" Kaelin asked, pulling her close against the evening chill. "The part where I fought another alpha at our bonding ceremony? That was terrifying, not best." His arms tightened around her. "The best part was watching you handle Lyris with grace and strength, proving to everyone watching that you're not just my mate, you're their queen." "Think they actually believe it now?" Alara leaned back against him, watching stars wheel overhead. "After watching you beat a trained warrior?" "Yes." Kaelin pressed a kiss to her temple. "You're going to be magnificent at this. Already are." Alara thought about the territories spreading out beneath them, about Silverwood rebuilding under new leadership, about the traditions changing, the rules being rewritten, the future opening up with possibilities. "I'm scared," she admitted quietly. "Of failing, of making the wrong choices, of being human." Kaelin turned her to face him. "You're allowed to be scared, allowed to make mistakes, allowed to not have all the answers. His hands framed her face. That's what makes you a good queen instead of a tyrant. You care about getting it right. And if I don't get it right, then we'll figure it out. Together. He smiled. That rare, genuine smile that transformed his whole face. That's kind of our thing, remember? Alara laughed, the sound bright and free. Together. I like the sound of that. Good. Kaelin kissed her, slow and sweet and full of promises for all the tomorrows they'd fought so hard to claim. Because you're stuck with me now, crown and all. Far below, the celebration continued, music and laughter and the sound of people building something new. Alara stood on those battlements with Kaelin's arms around her and looked toward the future. Uncertain, challenging, full of possibility. She thought about the girl who'd run from the claiming ceremony, who'd saved a dying stranger in the woods, who'd made every impossible choice that led to this moment. That girl would have been terrified of what came next. But the woman Alara had become? The Alpha Queen who'd earned her crown through courage and compassion? She was ready. For the challenges ahead, for the territories that needed guidance. For a future built not on tradition and control, but on choice and strength and the radical idea that power could be used for something more than domination. I love you, Alara said. Not for the first time, but with the weight of everything they'd survived, everything they'd chosen, everything they'd become. I love you too, Kaelin answered. My queen, my mate, my equal in all things. And there, beneath stars that had witnessed countless bonds and broken countless hearts, Alara Vance, Omega-born, queen-made, survivor, and revolutionary, claimed her crown and her future, together with the king who'd chosen her, the way she'd always deserved, the way she'd fought to earn, the way that rewrote every rule and proved that sometimes the most powerful thing you could do was choose love over law, compassion over control, and yourself over everything the world expected you to be. The celebration would continue until dawn. But Alara had already won her greatest victory, not against enemies or poison or impossible odds, but against the belief that she was too small, too weak, too insignificant to matter. She mattered, and the territories would never be the same.